Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, wherever it is you may be watching from, and welcome in to Premier Endurance League for the Dash Offroad GT3 Limited Series. We're in for the penultimate round here this evening, round 4 of 5 for this season, as we head to the legendary Circuit de 24 Hours du Mans, also known as Le Mans. Hamish Rondo here with you alongside, well, a bit of an international collection of commentators here this evening, Jake Sperry and Dylan McDonald. And Jake, we come into tonight on the weekend of the Nürburgring 24 Hour to the home of the Le Mans 24 Hour, where drivers will go racing for 2 hours in the hopes of glory in sports car action around one of the crown jewels of racing here in France. It's a great pleasure to be here with you and working with you here this evening, and I'm so looking forward to this one. It's going to be a spectacular race, especially off the back of what we've seen thus far this season.
And I think what's going to be really critical about the way this race is going to form today is that this is a circuit unlike any other. We talk about being on a magical weekend of endurance-style running. When you get to this track here at the Circuit des 24 Heures du Mans, you understand that you drive this differently. You're flat out for over 75% of the lap. So the way you're going to gain that advantage is how you hit the brakes and how committed you're going to be through the very many corners of the lap. The times look a lot exacerbated to what we normally see around a regular circuit, but I don't think that's a bad thing at all. The draft is going to play a huge factor today, as might the weather.
Oh, well, you mentioned it, the weather. The clouds above, there's a timeline in plan, and there could be some rain coming. We've had rain prior to the session, so it's been a drying circuit through practice and into qualifying. Will there be more to come, though? Is there more that the gods are going to offer us in terms of rain on our road? And will that offer up some drama and perhaps some spanners in the works as well? The 13-kilometre behemoth that is Le Mans is going to offer us up something spectacular here this evening. Dylan McDonald, welcome in. Of course, you're more of a NASCAR background, but you have got sports car roots within you as well. How does it feel to be here at Le Mans one more time for some sports car action?
It actually feels pretty good. You know, it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but nothing too extreme. It's nice to see something different other than a truck, a NASCAR, or an Xfinity car going around in a circle. So like to see a little bit of left and right turning, and then also I get to see a little bit of rain in the forecast, hopefully, and see what these drivers can do on wet tires, dry tires, pitting, anything that can absolutely happen here at the 24-hour Le Mans.
Well, that's right. I mean, we know how it can have so many ebbs and flows throughout the race at Le Mans in the real world for the Le Mans 24-hour, but also we can have it in the sim as well. And what we've seen throughout this season across the last few rounds, namely round 1 at Bathurst, Mount Panorama, it was absolute chaos personified. So many safety cars. In fact, so many the safety car didn't work in the end, and we almost had to do some virtual safety car stuff. And then into Adelaide for the sprint round, the new format, 2 1-hour races. That offered up some challenges. And then last time at Road America was the proving ground straight after the most previous balance of performance. The Lamborghinis are not so strong anymore. They now struggle with those rear ends. Hopefully it's not going to be a continuous factor here tonight as we head into Le Mans, as we said. Jake, for the Challenger standings, Peter Baxter is well in control right now. 402 points ahead of Daniel Fritz, sitting on 318. And Dale Atkins on 313 at the moment in P3 as well. There's a couple of drivers tightly tucked behind them, but right now, this is Pete's championship to win. If he can maintain a good position tonight, leading into Circuit Spa-Francorchamps next time out, he could well and easily walk away with that Challenger championship.
Let's put it on the flip side as well. It's his championship to lose at this moment at exactly the same point. It's a four-headed hydra at the moment of Fritz, Atkins, Wilkes, and Brook, who are looking to be the challengers out there over the course of this. And Peter Baxter has to be very careful today because this is such a large circuit and there is an air of unpredictability that is going to be out there. So if you are trying to hold a championship lead, there is a very good chance that this could be one where he wraps it up with a round to spare. But I would look around at him on what we would call moving day in the championship. He's got to make sure that he gets his ducks lined up in a row. I wouldn't be looking to go out there and win it today if I was Peter Baxter. I'd be looking at him and his position and say, just take the points, go to Spa. 2 consistent finishes from this point onwards is going to lock that championship up here in Challenger.
Well, he also sits aboard one of the most comfortable and arguably one of the best cars on the balance of performance, the Porsche GT3 RS. And that car is going to offer up something else for him in terms of just comfortable racing, very good pace, very good fuel strategy as well. And that'll help him, especially across tonight with this variable weather. You know, normally we've seen this limited fuel run get them around about 30 minutes on a tank of fuel. It's going to be harder for them to push it here this evening because of the fact that it is such a long lap. It's over 3 minutes, nearly 4 minutes on the lap time. And going into, into that, knowing that rain could be a factor, rain's going to extend it out, possibly even by 15 minutes out to 45 minutes. So that's going to really shake things up. Strategy's going to be key. We'll see if he can put those pieces together of the puzzle. For the Elite Championship at this stage, we find Kane Ryder well in control. Multiple-time race winner this season. His teammate Daniel McCrowan has been up there with him as well. But there are some drivers in behind who are hoping just to sneak their way forward tonight. Now, Jesse Butler, Kurt Chapman have had some strong finishes, and Owen Coleman's had some good pace. But right now, they're not quite close enough for where they need to be to truly challenge into Spa next time out. Ultimately, for Butler, Chapman, or Coleman here, Jake, they need McCrowan and Ryder to have an absolute mare out at Le Mans, because if they don't, they're going to be the ones with egg on their face at the end of this evening, and Ryder's going to go on to Spa and hope to win the championship with a much more large championship advantage.
But what he'll also understand as well is that the more people he adds in, the tougher that his job is going to be. So I think he's constructed a really nice season here with only Daniel McCrowan as the nearest challenger. So I'd say that is a very nice position to be sat in, but you're always trying to, when you're out there fighting for a championship, you're always trying to make your job as easy as possible. The less amount of people that you have to look at over the course of a championship run, the easier your job is as the championship leader. So I think he's not paying as much attention here to Jesse Butler back at 132 points adrift. I don't think he's thinking Kurt Chapman or Owen Coleman. I think he can let them go if they get ahead. I think the bigger issues are going to be, well, what happens when you get other drivers who are moving up the order and challenging? And I think Daniel McCrowan is going to be the bigger threat out there, and that's where his sole focus is going to lie tonight.
We'll see how that team plays it out and if there's going to be favourites or if they're going to be working together across the evening as well. As we said, Le Mans here this evening for tonight's race. Next week, next time out, not next week, in a month's time, we go to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps for the next round. But as we find our way on in towards the Le Mans circuit, as I said, it's a crown jewel, Dylan. It's a circuit that is 13.6 kilometres long. It's giant straights. It's a power track. You can save fuel relatively well if you can sit in the draft for a long time. But ultimately, this is one of those tracks that you look at it and you think, this could be the circuit, that kind of, it's a circuit that kind of decides your race, similar to Bathurst, similar to even Daytona. It's one that could decide our victor here tonight more so than the drivers out on track. If any of them get into strife or they pick the weather wrong or they pick the strategy wrong, that's where the big test is going to lie for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's all going to come down to how hard they want to push in the beginning, the middle, and the end of the race. Everything is going to come down to, one, keeping the car as clean as you possibly can and not sliding the tires, not hitting the rumble strips, getting off track, or keeping it out of the wall as well. So the battle of attrition and focus is going to be the main priority for a lot of these drivers out here tonight. So definitely want to see what a lot of these drivers can do and keep it in between the lines and give a lot of drivers a little bit of room to make it all the way around this 13.6 kilometer track.
That's right, 13.6 Ks, 8.4 miles in other measurement systems as well. This layout has been used since the year 2000. The key point to this circuit we got to keep an eye out for, especially early in the race, turn 1 at Dunlop Curve, up through Dunlop Chicane at 2 and 3 as well, through the S's at 6 and 7. Then we run through Tetra Rouge, down the Mulsanne straight and into Mulsanne at turn 15. And then we look towards Indianapolis and Arnage at 19 and 20 as well. And this is where drivers can begin to become unglued, not only early in the race, but late in the race as well. Then up through the Porsche curves and through the Corvette curves and the Ford chicanes to end out the lap. Those are the key areas that drivers would have focused on through practice and now into the race here this evening as well. It is a mega time to be a race fan. And, well, what more could you ask for coming out here to circuits... Circuit Le Mans, of course. And as we look ahead to the race to come tonight as well, the warm-up session is currently underway. We've got 1 minute and 15 seconds left on the clock, and drivers are out there at the moment just getting themselves prepared and set up for the race to come. And we get to do a little test now, gentlemen. I've not yet been able to do this for a live race yet, so we're going to see if we can do it. If we can check the starting grid, and we can during the warm-up session. Fantastic. So there's going to be no rushing through it here this evening. But we can see Greg Barber on board that Porsche has put the car on pole position. Kane Ryder, championship leader, will start P2 alongside him as well. Row 2 in behind, we then find Scott Rankin and Brant Tucker for the top 4. To row 3 in behind them in the top 6. It's Alfonso Latea and Daniel McCrowan in P6. He'll have a couple of cars to get through and some work to do to get up to support his teammate at the front of the field. Being that this is a good draft track, he could find his way there fairly shortly across the oncoming laps here this evening. To row 4 in the top 8, we'll find Nathan Hodges and Ben Wilkes. So making up our top 10, Jake, we'll find Stephen Tonkin and Peter Baxter in behind them. Good starting position for that Challenger class leader in Mr. Baxter here tonight for the top 10.
Yeah, very much so. So getting himself into a nice position. Jake DeBetter will go from 11th as the Mustang of Matt Webber will be in 12th position. A little out of position, I would argue, Owen Coleman in 13th. Benjamin Johnson makes it an American manufacturer 7th row, with Ford and Corvette being shown in its entirety. Thorne Weggett and John Trott will be there housing row number 8. Gavin Simpson will be in 17th, a Challenger, alongside Benjamin Brook in 18th position. Your top 20 rounded out by Tristan McLaren and Matthew Crozier.
To the 11th row of the grid in the top 22, we find Patrick Reardon and Wade Reynolds out there here this evening. Row 12 in behind them, we find Brendan Purcell and Ed Adcock off pace from his previous best this season. He'll have a lot of work to do from further down the order here tonight to find himself up towards the top end if he wishes to bank some solid points on board that Acura. Row 13 in behind them will be Chris Ruddle and Martin Hallinan. Row 14 in the top 28 will be Matthew Carrig and Martin Lofthouse. And for our top 30 here this evening, Dylan, it'll be Daniel Fritz and Rafael Custodio for our top 30 positions on the grid.
Get ready to go for row number 16. In 31st is going to be Greg Haney. In 32nd is going to be Mark Foster in that Mercedes, starting outside P number 32. Row 17. In 33rd is going to be Stefan Mielis with PJ Whitman on his outside in 34th in another Mercedes. Row 18 in 35th position in the Aston Martin is going to be Nathaniel Coburn with Ricky Provenzali in 36th. Row number 19 in 37th is going to be Richard Mayer with Jason Adams in 38th on his outside. And rounding out the row 20 in 39th and 40th is going to be Rue Kistra and Daniel Piper in a McLaren, rounding out your top 40.
We've only got a few rows to go to the end of the grid here tonight. Andrew Neil, Matt Schmidtke and all Lamborghini, 21st row of the grid. To the 22nd row, we find Kurt Chapman and Christian Wells for the top 44. Row 23 and behind them will be Dale Atkins and Glenn Crellin alongside each other as well. And at the back end of the field is our race controllers, Scott Barton and Tim Lawson. Ed Adcock has missed the race start. He will start from pit lane. Could it be sound strategy or could it be a mistake from him? We'll have to wait and find out off of the race start here tonight, as everyone gets themselves prepped and ready for race start. Ryder, championship leader, doesn't necessarily need the race win, and he can give up points to Greg Barber here this evening. Barber on pole. He's had great pace this season, but very poor luck. He'll be hoping to change his luck here tonight out at Le Mans before we head into the final round at Spa in a month's time. Watch for Scott Rankin and Brant Tucker as well. Tucker sitting pole position tonight for that Challenger class. Can he maximise and maybe take home a race win for that classification as well? Up towards the Ford chicanes they come for the first time. It's big pressure. It's a big moment. This is a race that a lot of drivers will be wanting to win just for the scenery, just for the location, and just to claim that they have won a race at Le Mans here in Premier Endurance League. It's been a tough season for some. It's been an easier season for others. But who will maximise it across this one here tonight? Pace car comes into pit lane. Greg Barber has control of the field to the start-finish line for the very first time. It is green flag out at Le Mans. See, leading up towards turn one here, Barber had a great start ahead of Ryder, leads towards the Dunlop chicane for the first time. Tucker. Oh, massive contact in the background. That's Scott Rankin around there, Jake. Big contact and a big loss for Rankin. This is not what he would have wanted at this point.
It's no contact. He's just done it on the curb. Cold tyres, lap one, turn one. Everyone's done it in avoidance. Then getting through all of that was Ben Wilt, who was just about able to avoid the hit then going through the chicane. And simply put, when you're on the start of a race like this, it's a mostly dry circuit. I noted going through on the start of that warm-up there, Hamish, it was clear Rankin put two tyres in the puddle as he went through to the rear corner Mont. That says to me there's trouble, and the track is jammed in the middle. There's a massive accident. They'll have to throw a safety car.
Yep, this will easily be an early safety car here, and oh my God. Well, Dylan, I think you've brought with you some NASCAR magic, because we've had a big one and it's on lap one.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier in the pre-race show, Hamish, was the cold tires, the puddles on the racetrack, just getting the cars wound up, getting the tires warm to not have this incident happen here. But anything can happen at a track like Le Mans or any track in general. And to see a lot of those race cars damaged this early in the race, that could be detrimental to the drivers that are still trying to catch up in points. Obviously, they're not going to be able to get up to the championship leaders as of right now, but they need all the points that they can get, as a lot of the drivers have to either A, tow back into pit lane if they can, or try to salvage something and drive their cars nice and slow and not recommend any more than they are all the way back into pit lane.
Well, Race Control have called a safety car here, Jake, and this is how it started, and it involves the Challenger class championship leader in Peter Baxter. Now, this is where he's already around, so there's obviously something that's happened prior to this. Oh, there definitely has. This is not what he wanted to begin his evening. oh my God, it's not even, it's so bad that it has just completely set me for an absolute loop. This is how easily this can happen. It might have begun here, actually, with Ben Wilkes having an off-track. So this is down at turn 3. So he's already off the road here. But how does Peter Baxter end up on his own in the wall down at the, I think it was the exit or the entry to the Mulsanne Straight. But absolute chaos, and we've not even had a droplet of rain in this race just yet.
Well, cold tyres, lap 1, Porsche into Tetra Rouge, tries to get it to pivot in through the corner, gets caught on the outside, back steps around, finds the barriers, trying desperately to get it to slow and get around, and then McLaren basically, bang, gets into the side. Everyone then tries to avoid. One of the Frog Leap Juice cars gets into the barrier, and ultimately, carrying that speed, it's very tough to get on the brakes and to hold it, and basically the track gets a logjam, and people, look, just are not slowing up for the incident. That could have been a 5 or 6 car incident. It ends up being a 10 to 15 car incident because drivers are just too busy putting their right foot to the floor there, Hamish, instead of using the brakes.
Yeah, that's right. And that has offered up, a very tough moment for those drivers, I'm sure. The safety car is out there. Scott Barton is at the helm, waiting to pick up our race leader in Greg Barber. But he is doing a hell of an effort right now, is Mr. Barber. I don't know why. My software is giving me the replay sound over and over again. So that's one little bug that'll have to be fixed, I'm sure. But this is a little bit of a lifeline, I suppose. They can save some fuel now. They can try and push on for that little bit longer. But ultimately, I wouldn't expect we see anyone hop into pit lane now unless they've got some damage, surely. Or if you've started at the back of the field and you want to offset yourself slightly on those front runners.
I look around and I see Rick Provenzale in the pits, Nathaniel Coburn, Stefan Mellis is in there, Gavin Simpson, Chris Ruddle, I believe Brendan Purcell is down there in the pits, and of course Peter Baxter. So we're talking about that championship and how critical that it is walking into today in Challenger, and this is exactly what Fritz and Atkins and Wilkes would be looking for in terms of their efforts out there. Daniel Fritz currently in 23rd position across the line. We'll be seeing this, and if there's a 0 going on the board from that Porsche, I would be turning around and saying, well, that's the one time you couldn't have afforded an issue out here in GT3 Limited, and now it's game on as far as the championship's concerned.
Well, that's right. And the sort of pressure that now puts on Pete, I mean, you would expect him to continue on tonight. He has to obviously wait for that tow, which is horrendously long here at Lamar, of course, because it is such a long lap. And then he's got to try and get the car fixed and then back out on the circuit again. The best thing I think Pete could hope for is just try and circulate, get some points on the board, see where you end up. There's no point giving up now unless, the car tells you it cannot be fixed again later in the race. We've had a request for the Scott Rankin incident, so we will bring that up to see how that did actually occur for Scott Rankin up towards the Dunlop chicane. This is what occurred for him down here. So he's on the inside, up in the top 4, and he's just over-rotated the rear end.
It is as simple as that. That's all that you can do. It's lap 1, it's turn 1. Yeah. Tyres just step themselves out. And, Dylan, we talk about tyres being a big issue out there when they're cold. Obviously, you're not expecting to see a car snap like that and get so loose so quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And with it being kind of a little bit of a sweeping right-hand turn that Scott was going through, it is absolutely amazing how he was able to do a nice little 360, not get hit by anybody, not hit the wall, and not damage his car more than what it could have been going through at that point in time. And, it's just the smallest little thing to where you think, okay, look, I can go full bore through this corner, nothing's going to happen, and then in a blink of an eye, everything can absolutely change without you even knowing it, and then by the time you catch it, it's already too late, and that's exactly what happened there to Scott Rankin. Luckily, he was able to get it slowed down, get back in line, and then miss that big wreck going through the next corner with everybody else piling on in.
Well, they set themselves up and try to keep the focus on. This can be a difficult point, though, Jake, because we come off of, you've gotten yourself, revved up and ready for a race start, and you've pushed on, you've made it to the Mulsanne straight nice and cleanly, and then all of a sudden there's this big incident, and then the safety car's called. That can really hurt a driver's mentality at the start of a race, and we may see, key reason why safety cars breed safety cars in racing, because all of a sudden it's kind of recalibrated your brain. You've got to try and get back in that focus, back in that mindset of racing after it just being taken away from you so quickly. This is going to be a very interesting race restart for these drivers now, because they've got to try and get the brain prepared. They've got to get them physically prepared, and they've got to be ready to push on. If there's any hesitation off this restart, we could be in for another safety car period.
I don't think we will, though. And the reason why is because it was such a big incident at the back. I think this is going to be one that actually calms the nerves rather than actually makes them a little bit more jittery. I think the field at the front will understand, okay, we haven't really gone out there in anger. We've got to keep the tyre temperature up. But I think the mid to late field right now will be very, very happy at the fact that they've now got another opportunity to go for it again, and they've got to push. Worth noting, the likes, say, of Peter Baxter has used the one fast repair that is available out there in this race. So you're not pretty much in the water as far as it goes off of getting yourself in trouble in an incident, but it means that your free life effectively is used up, and you can't afford to get caught in anything more than what is there at the moment. But I think for the front, yeah, it might be, as you say, Hamish, it might get a bit more jittery, but I think that the midfield will actually be a lot calmer on this restart, and they'll be looking at this thinking, right, okay, we need to try and put ourselves into a position where we get a few laps under our belt, because when you're ticking around like this, and we're talking about fuel strategy, say, for example, 65% fuel tank limit, they're going to be extending this out a lot longer than you think. So while we normally talk about this in a strategy game being a 30 to 35 minute pit stop around here with that sort of limit here, Hamish, we could be seeing that extend out to 40, even 45 minutes on a stop, and that could put yourself in a very clear two-stop window today.
Well, that's right, and the more fuel that they can save, the better, of course. And as we stated, the rain is going to have a part to play in that as well throughout this race, and that is going to offer up a bit of challenge for those drivers throughout too, as you get ready for the restart now here this evening. And Greg Barber will have control of the field. Can he hang on up here against the championship leader in Kane Ryder, or is he going to feel the pressure early? The Porsche looks strong, has the demons of the Lamborghini held on to it this time as well, like it did at Road America, or will it fix itself all throughout this racing period? It'll be lap 3 of this race. We've lost arguably 6 minutes of racing thanks to this initial safety car period. Let's hope we can keep it green, keep it mean, and keep it in the straight and narrow throughout the next process of this race. Greg Barber in control once more, sets himself up for another race start as the safety car is now pulled into pit lane, exits the final chicane, and it's green flag once more out at Le Mans. Good restart from him, nice and tidy. Everyone in behind has kept themselves clean as well. Hopefully that mid-pack, as you stated, Jake, has got clear minds and clear brains heading into this next part of the race.
Well, it'll be easier the fact that they're single file here going to the Dunlop chicane, that Dunlop bridge, iconised here in iRacing, but will now be replaced with a Goodyear bridge, and that's a spinner on the final section. Then on the rear quarter mont, it's Matthew Carrick there for Riot Sim Racing, who has found himself pointing in the wrong direction. So easily done then for him, as he will now look to try and jump up the order. There's more cars off then at Dunlop as Glenn Krellin, is off the road along with Dale Atkins.
They're trying to get themselves prepared. I do apologise for that little blink then. That's thanks to all that gravel on the road. Hopefully it's not a continuous issue, as we've got more incidents, I think, as that's someone in the wall down there. Is that Brant Tucker going slow? It is. He's going slow because he's backed it into the wall at the beginning of the Mulsanne. This is not the restart that we were hoping for, Jake. Couple of cars dropping early, but the front runners, they're sitting nice and clean at this stage.
Well, Brandt's done exactly what Peter Baxter did, and I think that quite tells you how tough it is on the Porsche cold tyres when you attack a corner in anger at Tetra Rouge. Greg Barber won't mind. He's clear at the moment. Kane Ryder just cannot hold that same level with Nathan Hodges in third. The group in fourth, though, is where it gets interesting here with Stephen Tonkin, with Matt Webber. They are the ones right now where I think you look around fifth and sixth, where they're starting to look to this Michelin chicane here as they work through the second part of this Mulsanne straight, or sometimes known as the Honorières, as they work on through over to Mulsanne corner, as they will get themselves along this crown road and try and find the big braking zone after the tyres and the brakes get cold.
Well, Dylan, we know that Mulsanne can be a good passing opportunity for these cars, especially late in the race if you've offset your strategy slightly and you've got some fresh tyres compared to the cars around you as well. But early in the race, this is where you can pick off a couple of freebies if they make an early mistake on these, cold tyres early on in the race proceedings. But hopefully, from what we've seen thus far, it should be nice and clean through Mulsanne. I mean, they seem to be struggling through Tetra Rouge more so than anything, and that's becoming an interesting fact about this. Ed Adcock, though, we mentioned him. Dylan started from pit lane. He's already up to P34. He took advantage of the fact that about 10 cars were in the wall on lap 1, but he's still running clean at this stage and has found a nice little battle pack for himself to fight with here at the back end of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And patience is definitely going to be the key to this 2-hour endurance race here. As you can see, a little bit of space between a lot of the drivers out there, giving each other room, don't want to put themselves into a position where they can take themselves out, take out another driver, as we got side by side going on. Got a little pass for position there for that McLaren as he's getting ready to get up on the back bumper of that Porsche, get ready to take over that position as well. So he's trying to pick and choose where he can make the passes, where he knows he can't. He just wants to be able to get through this race as clean as he possibly can. You can see him all going through a little bit of a puddle there coming off of that corner, but still able to do what they need to do to get their cars into a position to where they don't have to worry about, one, hitting another driver, hitting the wall, hitting a puddle, spitting out, doing whatever they need to do. Patience, giving room, letting other drivers go that are a little bit quicker than you in the beginning of the segment, rather than trying to force a move that doesn't need to happen this early in this race.
Well, we can see that PJ Whiteman's already doing that now. He's given up a couple of positions, as I think Ricky Provenzali, who was involved in an early incident, and Crozier as well. There's a couple of cars that have been involved in a moment. Crozier's still running, but front end is missing on that car, and he's in fact actually having a little blinking issue down at the final corner. He's not sitting pretty right now, Jake, but he's just trying to fight his way back forward towards the top 10.
Well, the damage he would have picked up earlier on, so he's not picked that up in the incident, but he's caught a puddle and gone round for a 360. He's been able to recover it, but at the cost of being behind Piper and Foster now, so that's going to give him time to try and work back up through the order, as he's in that not so sweet 16th place for him at this moment in time. Started 20th though, but you're looking around here already 15 minutes. Guys like Daniel Piper up 25, Jason Adams up 25 in this race. They've really profited through a lot of malaise in the early starts of this race, and they will know that they've got to try and cool themselves down. Mark Foster with a slowdown penalty then. He's going to have to serve that here on the Mulsanne.
Yeah, Daniel Piper's going to get this position very, very easily thanks to that slowdown for Mark Foster as well, up towards the next chicane here on the Mulsanne. And Daniel Piper, well, he has been the, I won't say steady gainer, because he has rocketed up the field by 26 positions, but he's definitely taken advantage of all the chaos that's ensued thus far, as is Jason Adams, who's up 25 just ahead of him. So a lot of these cars in the mid-pack have gained a bulk amount of positions thanks to those early incidents on lap 1 and then even off the restart as well. But everyone else has looked to have finally settled into their groove, and for the race leader, Greg Barber, he's got a world behind him back to Kane Ryder. Now it's at 3 seconds as he runs it up towards the Mulsanne corner.
He's got a wonderful gap here, and the reason why he's built that is because he's got the ornate pace that everyone else just simply doesn't. The Porsche is the quickest car in a straight line, and I think he's got that trimmed out in such a way where Kane can't really follow in the Lamborghini. He got the likes there of the Corvette of Daniel McCrow and his nearest challenger in the championship behind him directly. So I think he'll allow Greg to go off down the road. He'll focus on what's directly behind him. Hodges in fourth, Webber and Tonkin still battling it out for fifth place. We take this wonderful onboard view here on the run towards Indianapolis corner under the Toyota hybrid signage then as we focus on through. There's that side-by-side. Tonkin's got the run here on Webber, and this should be the clearance that's needed to jump the McLaren up then into fifth, back once again on the Mustang. You then got Benjamin Johnson and John Trott who are sitting there right now. So 2 Mustangs, 1 Corvette and 1 McLaren all setting themselves up through Arnage.
Yeah, it looks to be a hot battle between them for a top 5 position at this stage, as Tonkin has now taken that spot from Matt Webber and he prepares for another push forward as well. There you see Scott Rankin is not too far behind them. There he is on board that ODBM, on that DBM, sorry, that drop bear / Orbit Racing Logitech G entry. His teammate Ben Johnson is just up the road from him as well. And we saw it earlier from Scotty's incident that he had. Well, he's also the first test subject tonight, Jake, of the camera setup here for Premier Endurance League. So we're able to show off Scott throughout the night and see how he looks. And we mentioned it pre-race, he likes to mean mug the camera just a little bit. Hopefully that's going to allow him to go a bit faster this evening and get back up towards that podium position.
Well, he's got so much force feedback going through his steering wheel. He's a driver who wants to feel what the road is doing underneath him as he throws it into the corners. You can see the tensile strength needed to wrestle up against what the car wants to do. And Scott obviously started there. Oh, and there's some big troubles there. A little bit further back, that's going to drop cars down the order there. So that's going to be with one of the AMG Mercedes then that is starting to fall its way back. I think that's Tristan McLaren again, who finds out that it's very tough going through, and that would have been Maison Blanche there, just outside of the Alain Prost circuit, and caught a wicked bump, actually, as he was coming off then, and onto the grass. I've never seen someone able to pick up that much air out there on track, just catching the grass funny, and he just got flipped up onto 2 wheels through the air, almost as if he caught a rut or a divot.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he's found the jump of Le Mans. I know the jump of Bathurst is gone, but he's now found the jump of Le Mans. This was Dale Atkins up at the Porsche curves as well. Mark Foster then too getting involved in an incident down here as well. And this is towards the final few corners out at the Le Mans circuit. Mercedes catches a puddle. Oh, and Adcock's now also gone round as well, as we'll find that incident on the screen, I'm sure. Here it is. Adcock is still going, but that car is crabbing hard here, and that is not what Adcock wants at this stage of the race.
No, he's nosed it front and rear into the barriers at Tetra Rouge, and the front right then is exposed. He's deposited the rear bumper then off out there on circuit, and that has given a lot of trouble out there. And the first incident has come through for a drive-through penalty. It's Alfonso Latea who is now going to get a drive-through penalty for an incident that happened apparently on lap 0, so that would have been in the run up to the start of the line. But Edward Adcock, starting at the back, could have ill afforded to get involved in trouble, and I think he knows he's got a car that just can't turn.
It doesn't want to go anywhere, doesn't want to turn, and it's just struggling to stay on the straight and narrow all throughout this race. And you know, Dylan, we speak about in the opportunities we get to call the likes of NASCAR racing and other oval ventures as well, of those long green periods and how that can begin to tire you out. And I think the one thing that can, as we've got confirmation of that drive-through from race control, thank you race control, I think the one thing that we look to tonight is there going to be any sort of boredom on the minds if we do get these long green runs of drivers hitting the straight once more if they're in their own little world? And could that then lead to some mistakes happening throughout this field, maybe as self-made mistakes, across the laps.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the longer these drivers stay out, the less fuel load that they have inside the car, the more the tires wear out on their cars. They're going to get a little more slippier. It's going to be more spicy going in and through the corners as well. So you really got to watch how much throttle pressure you're putting down into the tight, more technical turns going through Le Mans. So once the car loses a little bit more fuel, Hamish, and the tires get a little bit more worn, the car is going to be a lot more snappier than what we've seen in the early going of the race. So are these drivers going to want to fill it full of fuel and make sure that they're stable all the way through or all the way around Le Mans, or are they going to put in some pit adjustments, get the car more trimmed out, make it a little bit more tighter for the longer run as the gas wears out a little bit more? It's really a heads-up game on what you want to do. You can be so locked in and so focused that you don't really pay attention to what your car's really doing. You're just trying to find a faster and easier way to get all the way around the track, and then one little mess up can really ruin or put a really big damper on your race.
Well, we can see here that there may need to be some adjustments made in pit lane for some drivers. Jake, has Ben Brooks just gone round at the first of the chicanes at the end of the lap, and he was struggling for grip at the midway point of the Porsche curves off that exit, and then one of those Lambos have gone round as well. I believe that might be Matt Schmidtke, who's gone off at the final Ford chicane. This is chaos for some of these drivers, struggling for grip, struggling to keep the car under them for such a long time. I think Dylan said it right. I think there may need to be some adjustments in pit lane just to tighten the screws up a little bit, as Owen Coleman has now just had an incident as well on the entry to the Mulsanne.
Oh, and that's big for the championship, seeing Coleman in trouble right now out of Tetra Rouge corner. Schmidtke had his contact with Daniel Fritz. Koistra as well also had a spin about, but Owen Coleman could have ill afforded to have had a spin, and ultimately his issue is the same one we've seen from so many, trying to tip it into the corner. Tetra Rouge has a puddle on the inside and a puddle on the outside, and it's making a huge difference out there as cars just fall foul trying to carry too much speed, and they get that little hydroplane as they work on through. Rick Provenzale gets a black flag drive-through for ignoring yellow flags out there, but Koistra now down in the order, so Coleman's here with him now. Garen Simpson leading the train here with Andrew Neal. Baxter then, who's made his way back up through. Richard Mayer, they're all there, and they're all trying to say, look, we're going to try and get what we can out of it, but this is a very important phase of the race because they're trying to build for, if there is any threat of rain, there is a threat of it. There's apparently a 14% chance of rain in about an hour and 15 minutes time. So they'll be looking at that going, okay, second half of the race, there could be a threat of rain here. But for the moment, they're looking at it. It's effectively dry running. Go out there, be aggro.
Well, they're all pushing on as best they can. Andrew Neal, P21 at this stage. Car number 59 is sitting up 20 positions in this race. So talk about a survivor as he tries to find a 21st pass through Koistra in towards the Mulsanne corner. Cannot quite get there just yet, and he has to reset and reevaluate going forward as well. Let's have a quick look at how that incident happened for Owen Coleman off of Tetra Rouge. Jake mentioned it, of the sort of incident that has happened down here, but this is going to be a wild ride. Caught the inside splash, then caught the AstroTurf on the outside. Car goes around, kept it out of the wall importantly, but ultimately a lot of time lost out there for Owen Coleman off of that move as Neal finally gets that job done over Rue Koistra as they continue this battle for position. Further up the order at this stage, we've got Nathan Hodges and Stephen Tompkins battling away, but Tristan McLaren and Wade Reynolds have run it wide down at Indianapolis. This is a huge moment for those racers, Dylan, as that is a lot of damage on the front end of that Mercedes AMG.
Yeah, you can see it there, just a little bit too hot going into the corner, and then the front nose of that AMG getting just pushed in just a little bit, but as it's going on, you can see just how much these drivers are willing to go and push the limits of these cars to see what these cars can handle. Obviously, with the puddles being in the bad spots of the racetrack, you got to change your trajectory going into the corner. You got to make it a little bit wider to get around the puddle. You don't want to hydroplane, kind of like what Jake said earlier, as we've seen a couple of cars hydroplane, go into the outside wall, do a 360, pirouette, keep it clean most of the time, but, the water adds such a big effect for a lot of these drivers. So being judgmental about where you're going to put the car around these puddles, or get the car slowed down enough to where if you do hit a puddle, you're able to save the car, not lose a lot of time. But here, as it sits right now, everybody that I've seen that has hit a puddle and ended up spinning out loses 2, 3, or even more than those spots, as we see the AMG get ready to go into pit road this time by and see if he can get the damage fixed and then fill the car full of fuel.
Well, we'll see how this moment happened, and it looks to be the puddle on the outside of the circuit that has led to this moment for Tristan McLaren. So he's tried to go up the inside, overshot slightly, catches the puddle, round it goes into the wall. Big damage on that AMG, and it is not the position that he would have wanted to be in at this point. He's now in pit lane having to fix up the car, and the driver that's in the hottest position right now here, Jake, is Greg Barber at the race lead. In control, 6.7 seconds is now the gap back to Kane Ryder. Right now, Greg Barber is, I'm sure he's got a big smile on his face, but he'll know that a small mistake could cost him this race win. It's his to lose, but ultimately, he's the strongest man on this racing circuit right now.
He's got time, and he's happy with the sense that he's got that time. So he's in half an hour's worth of racing with a safety car period. He's now built that margin where Kane Ryder, pretty much, he's left him for toffee at this point, and he'll understand that, okay, I've now just got to manage the race from here on out over to the end of it. But one thing I will note about Tristan McLaren, he was very heavily caught out in the early stages of running then on lap 1. So I think he's out of his fast repair, and he's having to get that manually repaired to get back out and going. So that might be the end of McLaren out there and his effort to push through. But this is what you want. You just want space, clean, confident laps, and that's what we're starting to get out here and what we are starting to see. This is where Daniel McCrowan has got to try and be very thoughtful, as does Kane Ryder, but the side-by-side now are starting to make themselves known as Jake Bedetta here, who's leader in Challenger, is challenging with Scott Rankin. This is for 9th and 10th positions here, and Bedetta is going to be on the inside, but Rankin gets the clearance on the run to Indianapolis and says, I can make that through. Scott Rankin, the sort of driver out there, he's basically Australia's Mark Skaife, in the sense that he's out there, he's a fantastic commentator, he's a fantastic driver as well, but I've never seen a driver, Hamish, make easy driving look so difficult.
Yeah, he somehow finds a way though, doesn't he? I mean, Scott always finds a way to make it a bit different in his commentary and in his racing as well, and maybe that's the way that he goes about life. But every time we've managed to focus on Scott Rankin, a car has had an issue, including this one. Greg Heaney has gone around further back down the order in that Lamborghini. It appears that the struggles of Road America and this current balance of performance is hurting those Lamborghinis out there, and the only one right now that I would argue has probably been, sitting definitely in the best position, is Kane Ryder. And the other one that's probably sitting pretty right now, but is hopeful that his race can stay clean, is Andrew Neil, currently up 22 positions into P19 here. It was a major factor at Road America, these Lamborghinis having issues. It seems to be an issue that's continuing now. I suppose the one thing that they're going to hope for is Ben Brooks got himself a penalty for the unsafe rejoin on lap 5. I suppose the one thing they'll be hoping for now, Dylan, is a better balanced performance when they do change the cars again, more than likely in a season's time here in iRacing, but they're going to have a few special events to deal with these cars as they are, and hope that the special event BOP can help rebalance it out just that little bit better before the car gets fixed up before the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, iRacing does a very good job of balancing out the BOP of every single car, whether or not, if it is at a disadvantage or an advantage, they help them out. They take away if a car is showing a little bit more performance than, let's say, the Porsche over the Mercedes, or a McLaren over a Lamborghini, the Ford over the Corvette. So they'll take all of that into effect, help every make and model out to make them more even the way that they need to be. And it's all going to be up to the driver. Inside the car, they can do so much with the brake bias, the traction control, kind of doing what they need to do, put a different engine map on it, and just kind of go from there. Just try to find your comfort zone in each and every single corner. Because, I mean, when I would drive the GT3 cars, I would, every lap, depending on if it was Spa, Nürburgring, Daytona, Mount Panorama, I was always adjusting the traction control, the brake bias, whatever the case may be, to try to find the limits of the car without taking myself out. So a lot of the drivers out here tonight are going to be doing the exact same thing, trying to find the limits of the car. They found it, but they also got to be comfortable with it as well.
We can see from those skybound shots just how foggy it is becoming up and amongst the clouds there, Jake. And I'm unsure about the radar and when the rain's coming, if the rain's coming. You would assume, though, based on how many drivers have been caught out by some of the puddles hanging around this circuit, they are hoping and praying for sunshine and rainbows throughout the rest of this one. They don't want to see a droplet of rain coming throughout the rest of this race, as we've got an hour and a half to go here out at Le Mans.
There's blue on the radar, and it's in the bottom left corner, and it's hidden behind the loop button out there in the server. So rain is on the horizon. It's category 1 rain that looks like it's going to be joining as a 25-second penalty has been adjudicated to car 31. So that's Daniel Fritz for causing an incident, and I'm not shocked. He overcooked it into the rear quarter mont, and that's why he's got the damage. It's also worth talking about the fact that Ed Adcock had permission to tow from Indianapolis, and basically his day written and done. He's out of this race now, and that Acura is not going to go any further here in the running. But I'm turning around and saying, right, there are big battles still to be had. Jason Adams here up at it with Rafael Custodio, Kurt Chapman, Ben Wilkes trying to work his way back up through the order. There are drivers here who have done it very well, and you've got 3 in this group right now of Adams, Custodio and Chapman. They're 13th, 14th, 15th right now here, Hamish. They all started 30th or lower.
They took advantage, Jake, of that early incident on lap 1, and then the incidents off the restart, and they managed to stay out of some trouble. Now, one of the drivers in this group, in Kurt Chapman, has been through pit lane. He was within those lap 1 pitters, but he didn't pit from a tow. He came into pit lane, so he's actually taken a strategic stop to put some fuel in the car. So he's going to be able to go longer than these guys ahead of him. He's on a slightly offset strategy, but I think right now Kurt Chapman sits realistically corrected top 10 order, as we are getting the first proper green flag stop for one of our top 10 runners in Matt Webber, who's now come into pit lane. This makes sense to me because the Mustang, as we know, is a fuel guzzler out there, and unfortunately for Matt, he's had to come in perhaps a lap earlier than what he suspected, but we have gone longer than what we thought we would on a full green flag run, thanks to the loss of 6 minutes from the safety car. We've gone out to around about 36 minutes here in the race, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the front runner and race leader Greg Barber and then Kane Ryder in P2 come into pit lane at the end of this lap, because I don't think they're going to make another one for another 4 minutes out there. I highly doubt they're going to make 40 minutes off of one safety car.
No, I don't think that they are, but I think what they're looking at here in terms of this race is I maybe don't need to pit to a safety car. I might want to pit to wet tyres if I can predict it, if I can manage it, because there is that threat that's there on the horizon. We're talking about a threat that the first precipitation chance of rain is going to be in 35 minutes. So I don't think you're looking at this in the sense of, oh, I need to play this one-to-one stop to the end. I don't think it's that game. I think you're looking at it at the sense of, at what point do I need to pit to get to the tyres that I want? It just so happens, I think it's going to fall very nicely within the fuel strategy window of the Ford Mustangs.
Well, it may do, but some of those Mustangs have not quite come in yet. Reardon and Trott have managed to stay out there a lap longer than what Matt Webber did on this strategy. Owen Coleman came in with Webber as well on that lap. Both of those guys are Mustang runners. Hallinan was last in on lap 1 due to that incident that occurred on the exit of Tetra Rouge. And Well, we expect the Porsches more than likely going to go the furthest out of anyone on this fuel tank, but being that it is such a long lap, I don't know if we can as easily predict how much longer they can go, whether it's only a solitary lap or whether it's 2 laps. But we're going to get an answer fairly shortly, because Greg Barber is starting to rise up towards the Porsche curves and the second half of this lap as he runs it down underneath the Toyota hybrid sign towards Indianapolis. Will he come into pit lane this lap? Well, Dylan, do you think he can go one more, or do you think he's going to have to pit this time by? Because we've had a couple of pitters on the last lap, although they may have pitted a lap earlier trying to offset this race slightly, and maybe just trying to stick to their planned strategy at this point instead of pushing the fuel tank that little bit longer.
I think, me personally, with the pace that Barber's running as it sits right now, I would assume that he would pit this time by. He doesn't want to take the chance of, one, running out of fuel halfway through the lap, or being super close to where, if he does end up running out of fuel going into pit lane, and he overshoots his pit box or doesn't stop in his pit box or a little bit too short, he's not going to be able to get into his pit stall to get the tires and fuel that he needs. So I could possibly see Barber going in this time, getting the full fuel load, getting the new tires, and then seeing exactly how many laps he can go. So it's definitely going to be something to watch and see exactly what he does here as he's coming around as another beautiful shot on the onboard of this Porsche 911 as there it is, Barber into pit lane this time by. So he's thinking outside the box. He wants to be as safe as he possibly can, and he's got some followers in with a Lamborghini coming in this time by as well, Hamish.
So top 3 in, make that top 6 in to pit lane here, Jake, and this is what we suspected, 1 lap longer than some of those Mustangs, but this is a great position for Trott and Reardon to be in. They've managed to go as long as these other manufacturers and have managed to get 9 laps out of these cars before they've gotten to the point of no return. Now, we expect Kurt Chapman, and he's remained out there because he's able to go that little bit longer. Is he going to find some benefit out of this? I mean, he would probably take a lot of luck for the rain to move very quickly and get here, but ultimately, it's not going to be wet tyre running as soon as the rain arrives. It's probably going to be a good maybe 15 minutes after that before the track could even be declared wet, and we would need those wet tyres on these cars.
Well, that's one thing. Another thing that's worth noting out there is the fact that both Richard Mayer and Peter Baxter have the black flag against their name, and that will be for a number of different reasons out there. I wouldn't have thought in 40 minutes they've already hit 50 incident points, not around here. I think it would have been for not serving a slowdown penalty out there, so they will have a drive-through penalty, and with the fact that Baxter's gone out another lap and he's not served it, and he's got to do a pit stop as well out there on the run, he's at a real risk right now of actually being disqualified from this race if he's not careful.
Yeah, he's got to commit to this fairly shortly. He doesn't want to push the limits too hard, so we'll see how this pans out for him. But for Kurt Chapman, he sits in a fairly decent position as more cars are in pit lane. Koistra, Schmidtke, Purcell, Hallinan, Ruddle, Lofthouse, Heaney, Coburn, Mellis, and Atkins are all into pit road. And one of our closest battles on track right now is this one between Stephen Tonkin and Nathan Hodges, now into the top 10. Now, the top 4 runners all came in on lap 1, including as well Matt Carrick, who's inside of the top 10, so we would assume all those guys are going to be coming in at the end of this lap. But,
and I just want to note here, Hamish, just very quickly, that Daniel McCrowan jumped Kane Ryder in the stop.
Oh, he did. And his stop, his stop was only just under, or just over about a second shorter than what Ryder's was. And I think this is definitely strategic from this team, maybe to help Ryder save a little bit of fuel and offset some strategy slightly, but also as well just help them push on a little bit, use some tow, try and work together, get some bump drafting happening possibly down these straights. This definitely feels like a strategic play for that team of Team Max Boost. And for McCrowan and Ryder, they want this top 2 in the championship locked out before we even have a whiff of getting to Spa. Can they lock out the championship win, though, for Ryder here tonight? Well, if the plan is to have McCrowan finish P2 in behind him, it's not going to lock it out for him just yet, but it will put him in a much more comfortable position heading into the next round out at Spa-Francorchamps for the final round of the season.
It certainly will, and I think that Macron will understand that it's sometimes a bit easier to fight your teammate because you understand what they're dealing with, how they go about business, you know their driving style. I think it's very clear, almost 3 wide going into Mulsanne corner. Big gaggle of cars. Webber's on the back of this. You've got Daniel Piper, Benjamin Johnson, John Trott, and Jake DeBetter, who leads this group right now, and they are all just stacking up against each other. Watch Piper here, who's fourth in line. He looks like he's the most likely to go and make this overtake as he sits in the McLaren. The Corvette there for Logitech G Orbit Drop Bear sits in front, and now here's going to come the move on board then with Matt Webber's perspective of this over to Indianapolis, dives one down the inside, and that is what we call a cushy overtake.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of room left there from Ben Johnson. Just gave him all the room in the world to make the move happen. He gave him plenty of warning that he was going for it, and Ben was willing to oblige. He didn't want to defend it too hard. Now we're not even at the halfway point of the race. There would be no point defending that hard, knowing that Webber's on his heels. He played the smart game and just tucked back in behind, kept pushing on, and now they may hope to work together as the race leader Kurt Chapman is into pit lane, as is the cars in behind him of Gavin Simpson. Pete Baxter is in, but as we said, he has that black flag to deal with Andrew Neal. So Baxter, to complete this black flag, is going to have to do his stop, and then he's going to have to come back around again and do a drive-through, is what my assumption would be on this. And if he doesn't do it on the next time round, he will be disqualified, and it will be a big fat 0 on that point system. And then ultimately, because of that, it's going to open up the Challenger Championship once more before the final round out at Spa next month.
Yeah, that's how I read it, and he knows that he's got to take his service. You get 4 laps to serve a black flag penalty out here in iRacing, and so you have that to set out and understand as far as the race goes. So he'll probably try and serve it the longest point that he can. Rui Koistra then gets a 5-second time penalty for an unsafe rejoin on lap 3, but as the likes of Chapman comes out of the pits, Crozier will go by, Matt Webber will go by, so they've made some good progress then by being able to be longer, and the longer that you go, the more flexibility that you have on the strategy, and this is what we get when you get 2 hours of racing, enough time for strategy to make a difference.
And these are the sorts of races that I love. I love a strategic race, and one thing that I've been learning over the past few months is more race types and more of their strategy plays as well. Learning through Oval Series race strategies and then thinking, how can you apply that to road racing? And Dylan, there is a lot of crossover in that. Picking when you pit is very important. Picking how much fuel you take is very important as well. Ultimately tonight, though, being that it is a 2-hour race, it should be that you fill the car up and you push on to the next point, because you can't guarantee when the rain is going to come. The one thing you can guarantee is when the rain does come, you've got to pick the time to come into pit lane correctly. If you come in too early, you're going to give up too much time on those wet tyres as they get up to temp. If you come in too late, you risk either crashing the car or giving up time on the dries, as it's a little bit too slick for those tyres to get any grip out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I've taken away from the oval side that I use still to this day, and I help fellow road racers that are getting into the oval series or trying to let them know how it kind of works. You've seen how the race leader of Barber going in just 1 lap earlier, and then him going in and then having one driver stay out, then he goes in the next lap. Just a little bit of an undercut. In oval series, if the leader goes in 1 lap, you want to be, and you're in second, you stay out 1 more lap over the leader, you want to make sure that you go into pit lane before the leader that went in before you comes back out. The more that you're staying out on the racetrack, the more time you're going to lose. You're going to have, 1, less fuel, older tires. You're not going to be running the lap times that the leader that's going to be overtaking you is going to be running. So the more laps that you stay out on the racetrack over the drivers that have pit, you're going to lose more time. So maybe that can contradict everything and kind of switch over to the road side as one, Le Mans, a little bit of a bigger track. So I don't think the time deficit's going to be there as it would be on an oval side. But I think, kind of like what you said, do you fill it full of fuel in hope that you got it to where you got the strategy picked out to the exact extreme that you need to. So if rain does end up coming, you go in at the perfect time, not early, not too late, to where your tires are already gone before the rain even actually hits the racetrack, and puts a lot of puddles on the race, puts a lot of rain on the racetrack. Or do you got to kind of play everything that needs to go, as Nathan Coburn ended up having a little bit of a spin in that Austin Martin.
He did, as did Scott Rankin in his Corvette there as well. Great little bit of analysis of how you can pre-plan your race, or how you can plan around your race on the fly as well. And to give it the short for you, basically, if you see the race leader come in, you want to make sure your next stop, you're coming in before they do. So, you want to try and limit the amount of time that you're running on an older set prior to those guys coming into pit road. This is what happened to Nathaniel Coburn down at Indianapolis, and actually no, it was down at Mulsanne. I do apologize. This is down at Mulsanne for the Aston Martin. Just runs it a little bit wide, rear end lights up, and into the wall went Nathaniel's car. And then this was Scott Rankin's moment up at the Porsche curves, as he floated up for the first time, or not for the first time, for this past time. Just lost the rear, got a bit of a snap. Round she went, and had to try and get it picked up once again. And that is the second time that car's been off the road this evening. And for Scotty Rankin, he does not want to make it a repeating occurrence across this race. He wants to tidy it up, keep it nice and tidy and nice and clean here, Jake, and ultimately push on for the rest of this race now. But he cannot afford another off-track experience like that one.
Well, the issue at the Porsche curves, it's one of the most loaded sections of this circuit. You need all of the aerodynamic downforce to help pin you through the corner. So the issue that you've got going in for Scott Rankin is he turns into the corner, the rear end gets loose, so he goes to try and correct it. He corrects it well, but the issue he has is by the time he's corrected it, all of that aerodynamic load that is on the back of the car, it's gone. And so you're then relying more on the mechanical grip. That's why on the second turn-in, it goes bad. As I think that's a black and orange mechanical flag for Ben Wilkes, who has run himself into troubles. And now he's trying to limp, no rear wing on that Porsche. He is going to be in trouble and needing to bring that back to pit lane. But ultimately an issue of just not having enough downforce there for Scott Rankin. But big issues out there for Ben Wilkes, and he will know out there in his Challenger Championship that could pretty much write his season off, as he's done it once again at Tetra Rouge, and he's lost it before he's even turned it in.
He has, and this is what's happened to him as well along this racetrack. Also, a bit of piece of information for you. Daniel Fritz has been disqualified, I believe, for not serving an iRacing black flag. So we mentioned that as a possibility throughout this race, that could happen to some drivers, and it's ultimately happened to Daniel. He's now out of this race and cannot rejoin. This is what happened to Ben Wilkes, and that is a huge impact. Big for the championship, being that he is within that top 5 of the title race, and this is only going to hurt him and help Kane Ryder throughout the rest of this title chase now for the next hour and 10 minutes of this race, and into the 2-hour event at Spa next time out, as well, as he looks to limp this thing back to pit road. But Daniel Piper has got one hell of a gap building at the moment over John Trott, and in amongst that is Jake DeBetta, the Challenger class leader at this stage. Greg Barber leads this race by 11.3 seconds over Daniel McCrowan. He's got a couple of cars and meatball flags out there, and a slowdown for Wade Reynolds as well. So there's a few incidents happening. We've, relatively speaking, though, cleaned up the incidents on an overall scale here, Jake. And one thing we haven't seen for the last 40-odd minutes.
That might be a safety car. This might be a safety car coming. Dale Atkins here is parked, and he's got 2 tyres on the racing surface, and this is coming towards Tetra Rouge, and it is a safety car, and that is going to bunch this field back up, and it is an absolute disaster. It has been called just at the time when Greg Barber had just passed the pit lane entrance. So ultimately there, I think this is telling. Daniel McCrowan is going to jump in. He's going to get a cheap pit stop. Kane Ryder is. Greg Barber is not. And now he's going to be tactically at a disadvantage, Hamish.
He will indeed. He will be at a tactical disadvantage, and he'll be kicking himself that he wasn't able to get this done. Now, there's obviously, for the Greg Barber fans out there, and for Barbs, he'll be hoping this happens that he could be let past the safety car and go on for a lap and come in at full pace. That would be the one thing that he would want. But then the issue becomes the safety car has to let the whole field by. So unfortunately, it's just poor timing and bad luck for Barber that was called right then and there as he was coming past pit lane. It has given a massive free kick to Daniel McCrowan and the rest of the field in behind. There are some drivers who've opted to stay out though. Jake DeBetta, Kurt Chapman, Jason Adams, Gavin Simpson, Rafael Custodio as well. So the more cars that do stay out there will put more cars between Barber and McCrowan and Ryder, who will be hoping to put a challenge to him. I think the benefit is for Barber, if they get caught up in some traffic here, he could push on, build some gap, and maybe get something back out of this on the next pit stop, because realistically, they are going to need a pit again. They can't make it home from this point. He's just got to have to build enough gap to make up the time loss for what they're going to gain on him in the next run through pit lane. So the beauty is they're not hot on his tail. They are down the order, but how much time is he going to have to gain here?
I'd look at this and I'd say it's not much that you gain by doing it, but every little helps is basically the philosophy that you've got to go with. You've got to look at the strategy right now of why the stops have been made. Only 2 places lost for McCrowan, 3 places lost for Kane Ryder, and they sacrificed 2 and 3 places respectively for the ability to have a pit stop when it's wet, where they can maybe take 5 seconds, 10 seconds less fuel at the stop. And that is a big difference maker when you sit down at it, because this is such a long lap at full throttle. And the one thing that often gets forgotten is that you need to take less fuel anyway at the final stop if it starts raining. And we are expecting that weather front to come in. Category 1 and Category 2 band rain is coming along. So that's blue and green on the radar. And that is due in half an hour. So that's going to make a difference. That is a car off the road by a country mile and then some, going through the first chicane of Daytona. Nathan Hodges getting it all out of shape then, as he's worked on through, which is never what you want to see. Just ultimately car unloaded on itself and decided, no, nothing I can do about it. But the key's going to be, you take less fuel anyway because you're running in the rain and you've got lower average speed, and there's less to go and do it there. And yeah, Scott Rankin not looking too pleased by the looks of things there, Hamish.
No, he's not at this stage, and I think maybe he's recalculating in his mind of what he needs to do now throughout the rest of this race. Ultimately, he's down double-digit positions here, outside of the top 10 and nearly at the risk of going outside the top 20 when we do go back to green flag, thanks to race control. The first hour of this race will more than likely be done by the time we do go green flag, because we need to wait for the whole field to catch the train before the race control does release the safety car. So if the whole field doesn't catch them, I would argue by the Porsche curves, we may get one more lap under safety car. You know, I know those guys came in early, but that could maybe benefit Greg Barber just a little bit, because yes, they're going to gain some time on him in pit lane, and I did do the quick maths. Now, it was an 11.4 second stop for McCrowan, and the last time in pit lane, Barber did a 27.97. So for my money, he has to gain 16 seconds on him on track to make up the pit stop difference that he's going to have to do when he does come in. Now, ultimately, he's going to have to come in a lot earlier than what McCrowan will, because of the fact that McCrowan can now go longer as he has more fuel in the car. He's back up to 100. He's back up to the full tank of fuel on board that Corvette. The X factor in that is, if the rain arrives, let's say within the next 15, 20 minutes, Jake, that's going to throw a wild spanner in the works, because if Greg Barber has to pit too early for wets and has to put dries on, he's going to commit to having to do another stop for wet weather tyres to get that car home if it gets wet enough. Now, you mentioned it was Category 1 rain that was at the head of the storm coming, that light blue rain. I had it in Vets on Thursday night, and that was, roughly, it took them probably about 10 to 15 laps at the circuit we were at to get to wet tyre running. It worked out to roughly 30 minutes. So I think if that is at the head of the storm, and I'm unsure, you'll be able to tell me, is there any darker rain coming after that, or is it all light blue that's coming?
Yeah, there is.
Okay. Because if it was all light blue, it would say to me, we're probably only going to get wet tyre running for the final half an hour of the race. But if there's darker rain coming and heavier rain coming, we could be seeing this thing going wet for at least 45 minutes. I doubt it's going to go an hour, though, because we're not seeing any rain droplets on the screen right now, but it is such a vast circuit. The other issue is it could start raining at one end and it could be dry at the other. And then you've got to try and figure out the balancing act of which tyres do you take. Because if it's drenched at one end and dry at the other, you screwed either way, whichever way you take it. And you may just have to think, I'm better off on the dries here, because if it's the straights that are in the dry, I could be up for better pace, but if it's the corners that are in the wet, is that going to hurt me as well?
Well, expected, the rain should be hitting Mulsanne and Arnage as the first two places where the rain is going to be. It's a very quick safety car period. We'll be back to racing running here just shy of the hour, and critically to that point, I'm looking at it, there is green band rain following on from the rain that has already come through, and Greg Barber has already launched. That is very, very early.
It is very early indeed as he comes through the final chicanes and gets himself back to green flag running. And now the pressure begins. When does the rain arrive? And what sort of plan do you bring with you to that course for the rest of this race? Dylan, if you were in Greg's position, you didn't get a chance to pit under the pace car, you've had to stay out and you're having to push on. Are you trying to build gap, or are you trying to fuel save in any way you can to see how far you can go to get these wet tyres on without having to take an extra stop, as Rafael Custodio has gone off up at the Dunlop chicane. That Porsche got heavy damage, and Christian Wells as well has gone round. More Porsche drama amongst this field. That's not the thing that Greg Barber wants to see either for his car, as I've just noticed that Kane Ryder has dropped a few spots here off the restart, Dylan. So that's better for Barber, but what does he do now? Does he save fuel, or does he try and build the gap?
If I was Barber up in the lead, I would be fuel saving as much as I possibly could. Granted, 75% of this track is going to be full throttle all the way around. I would want to drop back, lose a couple positions. The more that you're tucked up behind somebody, you can stay off the throttle of being 100% throttle. You can drop it down to about 75% throttle and just kind of coast into the corners. So, like you said, Hamish, you don't want to take that extra pit stop. You're going to lose a little bit more time if you have to make that extra pit stop. So if I was the leader, I would want to drop back a couple cars into the draft, use that draft to my advantage, as we got a hard outside contact by another Porsche driver head on to the outside Armco barrier. But, you know, it's just not tire saving, but fuel saving is definitely going to be key for Greg Barber up in the race lead as it sits right now. You want to make only one more pit stop, get that rain weather tire, and then use that to your advantage. Save the fuel and play the long game. Don't try to be the hero. You want to be there towards the end of this 2-hour stint.
Well, the one thing he'll be hoping for, Jake, is rain in the next 10 minutes and heavy enough that he needs wet. So that's what he'd be hoping for. Because based on the fact that... No, he's not. Based on the fact that both stints have had a safety car period, and we went 35 to 37 minutes on the last stint, tells me he can go as far as an hour and 10 to an hour and 15 into this race. He needs rain in the next 15 minutes, and he needs it to come down hard. The issue is it's more than likely going to come 5 to 15 minutes after that, which is going to hurt him severely. Now, if he's got a spotter with him and they're watching the rain, there is a strategy he can pull here. Underfuel the car, that you don't put a full tank in it and you just take enough to cover a set of tyres. You push on, you try and counteract the differential in pit lane that way, and then you come in when the wet tyres are ready and you try and push on as best you can. I think that's almost got to be the sound strategy of Barber here, and in the next 15 minutes he may have to try and push on. You can say fuel he likes. Ultimately, he doesn't want to give up positions either, as Thornweger has gone round at Indianapolis, and then there's Nathaniel Coburn as well on board that Aston Martin. So a couple of spinners down there, and this is only hurting them, and we're only halfway through the race. The fact this is still happening is it's quite upsetting for those drivers.
Well, it doesn't matter where it's happening or when it's happening or how it's happening, and it's a 21-degree track temperature. It's cold, and so with these long restarts that we're talking about, it takes well over a lap to get them into a full operating temperature, and I think that's making all of the difference out there. So I would turn around and look at this and say, right, this is a tough circuit. You're going to have long periods where you're not using the throttle, or you're not using the brakes, you're not really putting any energy into the tyre. It's going to create a big drama point where the moment you need to use the tyre aggressively, it's cold again. You've got to find a way to keep the heat in, and that's why sometimes you might even need to weave on the straights for the opening lap to have that confidence to go and put that back into play. I think that's key. With Kane Ryder, his issue happened on the rear quarter mod on the restart. That's why he dropped a couple places. But here's the side-by-side. John Trott and Brendan Purcell. Purcell is going to lose out. He's third at the moment of the challengers. I'd like to point out, we have one challenger right now in third place, and that is really, really cool to see.
Yeah, Jake Tebetta has done well, maximised his pace, and he's almost tried to maximise his strategy as best he can. Now, he opted not to pit under this safety car period. He stayed out there as Dale Atkins continues in the wars. I'm not going to compound the misery for him by showing it off. As Christian Wells has now gone round again. This is twice on this stint that this has happened after the safety car restart, and he is in hot water right now, or at least currently it's hot sand, as he's gone off the bunker of the it's not even up to Tetra Rouge yet. That's at the second set of S's, so that's not what he wants. As there's some slowdowns coming from Purcell and Hodges. They've taken a little bit too many liberties up through Mulsanne of the through Tetra Rouge. So the fact they're getting slowdowns through there is they're pushing hard. They're trying to take as much of the circuit as they can here, Jake, but ultimately they're dropping positions by copying those slowdowns. They've got to be careful out there and try and keep their race nice and tidy.
They do, and this is what happens. The track limits around here are a little bit more difficult to manage than other places, because the places like, outside of Tetra Rouge, you'll get a slowdown for going too far wide to the left-hand side. It makes all of the difference if you're pushing too much, that you'll get that penalty and you'll have to serve it along this straight, and that's just lifting off the throttle, trying not to do too much about it and holding yourself very, very steady. Brant Tucker has been making some good progress. He's actually very experienced, is Brant. I knew him back in my first stint looking at this Australian scene about 8 years ago. He was out there and making some good progress out there, but he will note, as well as everybody in these small groups that's there, as he's side by side with Mark Foster and gets the clearance. It's about running back through the group when you can, because he's got Carrick, Heaney and Brook just in front, and Heaney losing out the place then to Matthew Carrick will now give Brant Tucker a bit of slipstream on the straight.
Well, indeed, we can see for the Challenger class standings thus far for this race, Jake Tebetta leads the way to Simpson, Purcell, Brook, Heaney, that top five, and Tucker, who had a great qualifying tonight and an atrocious run at the first half of this race. He's down 21 positions from that P4 where he started. He's just trying to make up for lost time at this point, and ultimately for Brant, he wants to try and get that car up the order, as that was Ben Brook serving a slowdown penalty in behind. But Brant Tucker's on the move. You see him flashing away to, I believe that is Dale Atkins on board that Acura. No, it's the Lamborghini, I do apologise, of Greg Heaney. So he's getting held up here from Heaney, who is a car 4 position at this stage, but he just wants to get by him, and maybe he feels he's being held up just a little bit from the car ahead.
So if he feels like he's being held up, he's going to have to make this move quickly, and it's very tough out of the Porsche curves to make it, because it's one line, Suitsal. There's the contact. Heaney goes around. He's going to tag another in Mark Foster, and everyone's going to have to scatter to try and avoid the contact. Some going high, some going low. Race control seeing it. Foster in a very awkward position to try and rejoin. Stefan Mellis has gone off as well at the Porsche curves, and so it's creating drama in the mid-pack that they really didn't want to deal with there.
Well, you knew it was coming, didn't you? You had a feeling. The fact that he tried to go up the inside, he wasn't ahead before the switchback of the Porsche curbs. And 9 times out of 10, contacts made at that point, and Brant Tucker may be having a traverse down pit lane thanks to race control because of that moment, because ultimately he wasn't up necessarily far enough, but he hasn't made the move stick. Now, yes, he was, a car width to the inside of the corner, but ultimately he's made the contact with Heaney, and now Heaney's had to come into pit lane for a green flag stop. And this is not what he wanted at this point of the race, Dylan. And I think Brant's going to have some talking to, or at least some action to prove why he did that from race control. And I think it may end up in a penalty coming his way.
Yeah, and with the race kind of winding down and, one more pit stop coming on board with everything going through it, you got to try to put your car in a position where you can make those passes. Yes, the switchback wasn't there. He wasn't fully ahead and, just ran out a little bit of a space. I wouldn't say it was egregious or anything like that, just kind of a little bit of a hard racing, just kind of ran out of space trying to get the car where it needed to be. And then obviously with a little bit of puddles on the racetrack, anything can happen as we got to pass for position there. It's just a little bit of give and take. You still got a little under 45 minutes left in the race. You could have backed out of it just a little bit. Wait till the next corner or long straightaway. Your car's a little bit faster than the Lamborghini that was in front of you. You got up to the back bumper. Me, personally, I would have fallen back just a little bit, let it patience ride a little bit, and then made my pass on a long straightaway.
Well, we always talk about patience being an important key to victory in racing here in Premier Endurance League, as Benjamin Johnson has run it wide down at the second of the Mulsanne chicanes. It's another 25-second penalty for Ben Wilkes. That's two that has come towards that car. 50 seconds will be added to the race time of Ben Wilkes here this evening on board car 104. That's not the sort of reaction he would have wanted from race control, I'm sure, but ultimately you do the crime, you got to do the time, and Jake, Ben Wilkes, this is only going from bad to worse for him in terms of championship order. We can see further up the field though, Daniel McCrowan is looking to battle away here with Jake DeBetta. He's now knocked that Challenger class leader off the overall podium. He looks to chase down Kurt Chapman, but I've noticed Barber, he hasn't managed to pull away nearly as quickly from Chapman as he has previously of Kane Ryder and McCrowan. That gap's only out to 3.8 seconds at this stage, back to P2.
And what's telling is Kurt Chapman started this race without a qualifying time and didn't even set a practice time. We don't know how quick he's going to be, and at the moment he's proving he's got equal pace to Daniel McCrowan. So Chapman from 43rd up to second in that Porsche, the AITX Revolution iRacing 916, is looking really, really good. But again, he's going to be in a similar position to Greg Barber on strategy, and that's going to be a difference maker. What will also be interesting now is how Jake DeBetta responds here, with Gavin Simpson just a few cars behind him on the road, because directly behind is Jason Adams, who wants to get through, and this would be a chance to get by, trying to get the move in on what is 4th and 5th positions.
Yep, not just 4th and 5th positions, P1 and P2 in the Challenger class. Another fastest lap of the race for Greg Barber, a second, 3:56 in a row, 3:56.23. But Simpson has just set the fastest lap of the race, 3:56.15. He is flying out there for Frog Leap Juice Racing. Unbelievable lap time for P2 in the Challenger class right now. Gavin Simpson, get in there, son. Great job, great lap. Can he chase down Jake DeBetta for race lead of the Challenger class, and possibly, Jake, the race win in that class as well?
Yeah, that race win could very much be on the cards for Gavin Simpson. The way he's driving, he is looking really, really strong out there to those who are trying to chase. So on that last lap, 1.4 seconds out of Jake DeBetta, and we'll be looking to try and do more to get that. So in the next 2 laps, trying to go and get there, trying to get close and try and go through. What will help is the fact that Jason Adams now has a slowdown penalty, so he has to lift off, and that will give exactly what is wanted here to Gavin Simpson, which is a tow rope.
Yeah, that's right. Massive tow rope, a Porsche-shaped tow rope, and this is exactly what he wants down the Mulsanne. He'll clear the slowdown off the first chicane, but it is draft range. It's draft time for Gavin Simpson, and I think, Dylan, it's time to pull out some of those NASCAR strats. It's time to bump draft this thing down the straight. No worth going for the move just yet. Push the Porsche ahead of you up to the battle that's ahead of you. Push him up to your competitor in Jake DeBetta. There's no point going past him. there's a lot of point in trying to push him along and catch Jake DeBetter in the lead of your class right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a little bit of bump draft can go a long way, especially when you got just Jason Adams in a Porsche, then you got Simpson in a Porsche right behind you. So you got two Porsches in a line. You got a 3-car battle up in front of you. If you want to help that driver get up to the front, the drafting is definitely going to be your friend in this point, but it also comes with a price. How much do you want to draft until you get to a corner? You got to back up your corner just a little bit more than what you would think, because one, you're going to be all over the back bumper of the guy in front of you. You're not going to be able to see out of the driver's windshield. You're going to have to go by feel. You're going to have to relay messages to the driver in front of you that you're bump drafting, like, hey, you're ready to come up to a corner. He's going to back off as he's getting ready to go for a pass here. They're going to be side by side down the long straightaway. He's going to be able to get that pass done into the next set of long sweeping left-hand or right-handers as they hit a nice little puddle down on the inside, able to keep it straight in that juiced machine number 98 of Gavin Simpson. But, you know, me personally, I would have just sat behind him, used that draft to my advantage, catch up to the guy in front of us, and then settle the battle once you get the 5-car in a tandem.
Well, once more, we mentioned it before, Jake, Scott Rankin is off the road. Once more, as is Daniel Piper. That car is spun round after Indianapolis. One point I will make is Gavin Simpson going past Jason Adams there, Dylan. He may just be trying to pull that swap around every single time we get a move made and just pull each other forward that way. Don't cost each other time, but that is Daniel Piper around down there. And Scott Rankin is dropping positions. This race is only going from bad to worse for the Logitech G Orbit Drop Bear Motorsport driver of Scott Rankin.
Together.
Yeah.
So the issue is they get the run out of Indianapolis, Scott Rankin's on the outside, and ultimately Daniel Piper's trying to hold the middle of the road off the exit, and the question is how much room are you there to be given? They both come together, there's a bit of net code in it, so I don't think it's fair to say it was Piper or Rankin's fault, but that's Scott's race for you. He's just been involved in too much. He's spun from the drop of the green flag, and he knows better. He's a better driver than what he's shown tonight, and he knows that this is going to be a very disappointing result for him.
You can see there the disappointment on his face. He's not happy. The car is broken, and it's very, very hurt at this stage. This is how it went down between Daniel Piper and Scott Rankin. In fact, we'll have to go back just that little bit further to see how this has truly come about. So Piper to the inside, Rankin on the outside. You see there, they just hook up slightly between each other. Piper in front of Rankin. Piper backs it into the wall on the opposite side. And Rankin has got some steering damage off of that one. He's had to bring it into pit lane. But you could argue that could be Rankin's race over and done with here this evening. Now that he's had to bring it down pit road one more time, especially under green flag conditions. He's going to be towards the back of the field, and that's not where he wants to be at this point here this evening. Stephen Tonkin now under pressure from Matt Schmidtke down the Mulsanne straight up towards the first chicane. Schmidtke gets it done very easily. Again, plenty of relay and room given from Tonkin there just to let him have the position. They've got John Trott in behind them as well. Trott had good pace in practice on Friday, but he's not quite matched it here in the race tonight. We're hoping to try and push this car that little bit more, especially as the rain will begin to fall. We're not seeing it yet though, Jake. It's not quite here just yet. Has there been a diversion for the rain, or has it perhaps just pulled off for this stage?
It's no diversion, it's just migrating across slowly. It's a form that is coming in from the southwest and up at this point in time, but critically, when we expect the rain, we were expecting it around 4:30, so with about half an hour left in the race, we got about 10 minutes before we start expecting that to maybe see the first drops that come through. So I think that's going to make a big difference, and it's only going to get stronger as they go through, because they've got Bantu rain that is there after the initial sprays of rain that will come on down. And officially, car 149 is going to get a 25-second penalty out there. So that is going to be Daniel Piper, who is down the order. He is going to get caught out for that. And I would say, for that incident on lap 17, I think he's desperately unlucky.
I think so. I mean, both of them are side by side through that corner. Now, maybe the question is, was Piper the passing car? Now, we didn't look far enough back to see who was the passing car between the two of them. Now, Rankin was off the road and trying to get back onto the racing surface, but race control would have looked into that.
I'd argue then, Hamish, that he hasn't rejoined the circuit safely.
Well, that's it. You know, we can make that argument as well. So I'm sure have race control looked at that and thought, well, if Piper's the passing car, has he then just not left enough racing room and has pushed Rankin off the track? I'm unsure, because we didn't go far enough back to actually see if he was the passing car, but I'm sure race control have done that to make that determination. But it'll definitely be something we may have to look into post-race and look into that a little bit further to see where indeed he possibly may have caused that to be a problem for himself to get the penalty. So we'll look into that a little bit later, I'm sure. But Greg Barber at the moment leads this race. Is he going to go one lap more? He's not. He's into pit lane as we predicted at the 1 hour and 18 minute marker. Now, as you mentioned, rain's about 12 minutes away. Is it going to be heavy enough that it's going to require wet tyres before the checkered flag?
Speeding on pit entry.
Oh no! Black flag for Barber.
That's cardinal. You can't do that from the race lead. You can't. You'll get done every time as you try and dive down in for it. He'll be joined in by a slew of other drivers then who will make this call. Jake DeBetter, Jason Adams, Matt Schmidtke all coming in. But you cannot, at this stage of the race, with this much of a lead, go and throw it away by speeding on the lane. It's first grade, Hamish.
I know. I mean, it's that there is a game-changing moment in this one. It is arguably the biggest mistake we've been all season in terms of what this means for the race, how much importance this has. He commits now to, I believe it's a stop hold penalty for speeding in pit lane, if I'm correct. So he's got to commit to a stop hold, then leave pit lane, and then push on. And arguably, the race lead could be gone without intervention from any other marker, because Barber now is all the way down in P27 and dropping further and further back. This is heartbreak for him, heartbreak for OPR fans out there, but it is his mistake that he's made, and ultimately he's got no one else to be blamed other than himself at this point.
I think he'll know and understand here that as far as his race is going to go, it'll be an extra 40 seconds at least tacked on at the stop, and he will need a lot of help to go and gather it back because he's already behind the 8 ball, depending on when the rain comes out there. And now the number 6 car gets, the 6th place driver now down in 7th here, John Trott, is going to get a black flag for not serving the penalty in time, it looked like there on the straight. So ultimately there for John Trott, he's just been trying to tactically serve that slowdown penalty, hasn't served it properly. He'll have to come down the lane.
He will indeed, will John Trott. I mean, this is only compounding the pressure and the heartbreak for OPR. 2 of their drivers with a drive-through and a slowdown. A drive-through and a stop hold for either one of those drivers. It's heartbreak for Trott because it'll drop him out of the top 10. It's heartbreak for Barber because it'll take him out of a race-winning position. This is genuinely going to be a Mount Everest level climb for Barber if he were to win this race. Ultimately, it is. He has to try and make up 40 seconds on Kane Ryder and Daniel McCrowan with 40 minutes left in this race. He has to make up a second a lap, not including the fact that he has to do another stop for wet tyres if the rain or if the rain is heavy enough, and we need those wets. So there is a world that he's lucky enough that he calls the rain correctly, Jake, and he makes up the 40 seconds that way. But more than likely, he's got to be pushing this car to its limits now, and he has to have the cleanest run possible to somehow get that car back up to the race lead. But I don't see a world in which that can happen with only 40 minutes to go.
Well, it's more than 40 seconds. It's 40 seconds plus a regular pit stop that he's lost in terms of time. So I argue he's about a minute 10 down on where he should be out there in the race. And so I look around at it, any understanding of rain or otherwise, he knows that this is just what can I get out of it. Race victory completely out of the question now from this point. But you can see here that the fog is rolling in here, and it is just setting itself up now for the point of concern that everybody has learned and understood. That rain is very, very near, and I would be getting very concerned, and I'd be eyeing up maybe some tyres later on as they will be trying to go through. Not initially, but I reckon with about 20 minutes to go, we might see them try and switch those tyres. But if the rain just holds light enough here, Hamish, here's the next question. Would it even pay off to go in and pit? Because Chapman's got to come in, and now he's going to have to come in for dry tyres, as is Gavin Simpson. And also you've got the likes there of, I believe, Andrew Neil also doing the same thing. My question's going to be, will it rain hard enough for wet tyres? And will it be a case of the last couple laps of the race, are you just going to have to tiptoe around on dry tyres on a wet track to try and win it? Who's going to gamble?
Well, that's what I'm thinking as well, Jake. Now, we obviously mentioned how big this circuit is and the fact that we can get rain at one part of the track and no rain at the other. So that's a factor. How heavy is the rain going to be? Is it going to be to the point that you need wet tyres in that section? Well, ultimately, if you only need it in one section but you need dries in the others, you may just then want to try and massage the car through there and try and keep it as tidy as possible. It's going to be light rain early, and that light rain early, that light blue rain, it'll last and it'll make the track wet enough after a good 15-20 minutes. As I said, we're going to be so close to the end of this race that is it then going to be wet enough across the rest of the track once the heavy rain comes at that earliest point, which as we said was up at Arnage, or is it going to be that you can kind of just dance it around this place and keep it as tidy as possible? It's going to be a massive gambling act, and what it's also going to be is it's going to be a crapshoot ultimately. You've got to throw the dice and hope they stick and hope you get the winnings out of it. Because arguably, I don't know if we can predict exactly how this rain is going to go, and I think every car out there ultimately is going to have to play it by ear. What I have just seen though is Kurt Chapman has exited pit lane on a set of wet tyres.
Oh, wow.
And this is way too early. This is way too early for wets.
This is a gamble.
It is a gamble, but I think this. The reason I think this is way too early, Jake, is we haven't even seen a droplet of rain. We haven't seen a droplet of rain. The track is nowhere near wet enough for wet tyres. Yes, this is a gamble. Ultimately, though, after one lap of this 13.6 kilometre circuit, these tyres are going to be overheated. He's going to have no grip. And I think he may have just thrown away a top 10 by pulling out this strategy.
Well, he's 24th after the pit stop, so he's looking at this and going, well, I'm net 24th. This is the way I get to my top 10 right now. And the way he's doing it is the rain right now on the zoomed-in radar, which is about a 5 mile square on the extremities of the circuit, is now showing the blue band of rain. So I think it's going to rain in the next, 3 minutes out there. We're going to start seeing that rain. So he's just hoping that by the time he gets round to Arnage Corner, he starts seeing the first droplets of rain. If he does start seeing that, that's okay. He can now start searching for the wet parts of the circuit and try and go and work the race from there. The issue he's got is not only will he have a tyre that is burning up because it's a wet tyre on a dry surface, but also the grooves will be less effective as he goes on because he'd have worn through the tyre so much already. So it's not as effective as a wet tyre. It's a risk, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have done that as a strategy, but if he wants to make this work, he's made his bed, he's now got to go lie in it.
He does indeed, and Dylan, ultimately this is a strategy that's going to make or break Kurt Chapman's race. And are we looking at it as a percentile of it's leaning to a break, or are we leaning towards a make at this stage? I mean, it's a very early call. We are waiting to see rain droplets on this windscreen of the AITX Revolution E-Racing Porsche. There's the rain. There is the rain just before Indianapolis. It's on the back stretch before right around Mulsanne Corner. So there is some droplets of rain. Has he called this perfectly, or has he maybe called it a lap too early? I'm not sure, but right now, as Jake said, Dylan, he's got to find the wet parts of the track and got to keep these tyres as cool as possible. We may see him driving in the grass in due time just to try and cool them down.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point of this stage of this race, Chapman is on the risk versus reward type situation. He's going to hit every puddle that he can. Like you said, he's going to hit the grass to keep them as cool as they possibly can. But with how long these straightaways are going to be, it's going to be extremely harder to find the puddles into the corners and get all four into a puddle and get them all cooled down the way that it needs to be. But with the rain getting ready to go down the backstretch, that's helping him just a little bit. But how long until the track is completely soaked to help him for the other part of the racetrack is definitely going to be the risk versus reward type behavior from him. But as you see here, everybody else going down into pit lane this time by, they're going to take their dry sets of tires or their wet sets of tires, put them on the car, and see exactly how heavy this rain is going to get within a span of 15-20 minutes.
Well, they're all gambling it here, Jake, and for Kurt Chapman, he has come out behind the likes of Rue Koistra, Owen Coleman, Brant Tucker, and those are just the wet tyre runners. He's come out behind them, and unfortunately for Curtis, he's given up time pulling that strategy off. Now, he had a 48-second stop compared to those guys. I wonder, has he maybe changed his mind in pit lane? Has he taken dries, heard that the rain's coming and thought, I'll go back up on the jacks and I'll take some wets? Because that's arguably lost him about 20 seconds extra in pit lane compared to the rest of the field.
Yeah, it could be that he's basically put a set of tyres on and he's had to take them off and put a new set of tyres on, which no one ever wants to do. It also can be that he's filled the tank up to full to try and get this one home without having to come in again. Now, I also note that Webber has had a unsafe pit entry into the pits, so that has dropped Matt Webber out of contention here in this. But as they work along here, the mole sandwich, 2, even 3 wide here at this moment. You've got Purcell, Chapman, Barber, Greg Barber in here right now. Gets the pass on through, so he came out ahead of Greg Barber then through all of that, even with his penalty, as he's working on the dries and trying to work on through all of that. Note there is a crossover period out there of when it is the right time to go onto the wet tyre, and I will say, Hamish, they are looking for a track that is very lightly wet to lightly wet. That's what they're looking at as the crossover. At the moment, it's declared mostly dry. It's too early.
Yeah, I think the dry tyre right now is the superior tyre choice for those drivers that have remained out there instead of coming into pit lane. How quickly, though, will it get to either lightly wet or to classified as wet? One of my key things that I always think about as a driver at times is the latest I'm ever going to come in a wet session is as soon as I hear the spotter declare the session wet, that's when I know I've got to come in and put some wet tyres on it. So you've got to try and balance that as best you can. As you mentioned, there is that crossover point. Now, we were averaging roughly 357s to 358s in this session prior to the rain starting. I think the crossover on average is normally about 10 seconds after that is normally when you get the crossover, or just below, as McCrowan is into pit lane. So we're probably looking at maybe 404s to 406s, and that's going to be the crossover, I think. I think that's going to be the true crossover point.
I don't think they have a choice.
They probably don't.
I don't think they've got a choice. Look, I think everyone's so limited on fuel now, everyone's just going to have to come in and put wets on and just suck it up, Buttercup.
So then the question becomes, Greg Barber, who had to pit for a set of dries, had to serve a stop hole penalty, is the rain going to hold off long enough, and is the crossover point going to hold off long enough that he's able to push on and gain back that extra 40 seconds that he had to serve in pit lane and somehow come out the good in this? He's going to have to push on far and few between, and he's going to have to hope that the rain remains incredibly light. That's what he's hoping for, or he's hoping for it to be spotty. Because as soon as it gets, wet enough for wet tyres, he's screwed. It's done. He needs it to stay a dry tyre track for as long as possible and to make the most out of this on this set of slick tyres.
I think he'll be all right for about 5 to 10 minutes. Anything outside of that here, it's going to be hitting that Category 2 rain, and that's where the heavens are going to open, and that's where disaster, I think, is going to strike for him. There's not much he can do except try and build the margin that he can, and he'll be looking around. He'll see the likes then. Schmidtke's already gone through. Tomkin has come out of the pit. Kane Ryder is going to be in a position, and look at that. He's actually going to come in right now. Here is Greg Barber, and I think he realises, I'm just going to have to eat it up here, take the wet tyres, nothing out there and hope maybe for a late safety car with a driver fighting damage in the wet conditions. That's got to be the saving grace.
I think so, and ultimately, for Greg Barber, he had a choice. It's either you push on for a lap, hope it holds off enough that you can make it back to pit lane again, or you come into pit lane hoping it's going to get wet enough that you can't survive another lap. And that I think is, again, it's that balancing point of how do you pick it, how do you choose it. Now, obviously, he needs less fuel than those cars that have just come in. But, you know, he's stopped. Yes, he's shorter as he's just come, he's just got into the pit box now. It's only just ticking up to 20 seconds, so it may be slightly shorter, but he is going to have a lot of work to do to get that OPR Porsche back up the order now and fighting for a top 10. I think that's his best chance, is fighting for a top 10. But now he's going to deal with cold wets, and you've got to get the wets up to temperature as soon as possible. They're like driving on ice out there when they're cold. The hope now is the dry tyre runners stay out there too long. That's what he's got to hope for. The remaining drivers on dries have got to stay out for an extra lap and then hope that they give up so much time that you just naturally get them through pit lane. That's the hope for Greg Barber right now, but ultimately, as we stated, race win's gone. The driver that is in the position, though, to arguably win this race is Daniel McCrowan, who's been through pit lane. He's got wet tyres on this Corvette. He's chasing down Challenger class leader Gavin Simpson, who's opted not to come into pit lane. Neither did P2 in that class, Jake better, and neither did Ben Wilkes. But McCrowan is significantly slower, but he's on wets. He is on wet tyres right now, so...
He's already lost 2 seconds here.
Yeah.
He's lost 2 seconds on the Mulsanne. So for the moment...
Well, I was going to say, I think the dries are still the optimal choice on the straights, but the corners, the wets may be the better option.
Look, here's the issue that you're going to walk into here. McCrowan needs the Porsche curve section. That's where he's going to gain that advantage. But right now, it's all in the hands of Gavin Simpson, so long as his fuel numbers count this. That's trouble, though, in the descent de la Chapelle over to the Techeru chicane. Glenn Krellin, they're running into troubles. But right now, I turn at Gavin Simpson and go, at least for the next 10 minutes, he's going to be fine, because he's, pulled 4 seconds now up at this point. He just knows that he's got a margin, and, you look around over right now, and I turn and say, Daniel McCrowan, he's going to lose second here. Jason Adams goes through and makes the pass.
Now, we're not quite at that crossover point that I mentioned. The dry tyre runners on the last lap ran a 4:01 to 4:03s. So we're getting there. We're nearly at the crossover, which, as I said, was between 4:06 and 4:08. But for Gavin Simpson, depending on how fast this lap is going to be the determination on whether he comes in. Now, he's pushing on fairly well. I don't know if he does come in. We'll see. He's leading up towards the pit entry. He is going to opt to come into pit lane. I wonder if it's a choice of the Bugatti circuit section is a lot wetter than the Mulsanne portion of the circuit, or if he just feels that this is now only going to get heavier from here. Dylan, this is a wild, wild strategy play for some drivers. McCrowan is somehow going to get away with this, depending, focused on how much time he's just lost across that last half of that lap. But I don't know which way to look here. Is it a dry tyre race, or is it a wet tyre race right now? Because I think we are in a true 50-50 of half the track is wets and half the track is dries. And you've got to make a determination choice and pick which one you want to favour.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see it coming off the rear diffuser of that Corvette. You can see the splashing little bit of water coming off the rear diffuser. And then you got the dry parts of the track. I think, me personally, I would have stayed with the dries as long as I possibly could. But then you run into the effect of, then you get the harder rain. Now I got to make another pit stop to go into pit lane, get the wet tires onto the car. As you see in the Lamborghini, get a little bit squirrely in front of the Porsche and the AMG Mercedes. As you can see there, just coming off that little bit of a corner, you can see the raindrops hitting the windscreens. See the water coming off the rear diffusers of all these cars going into the corners. One thing that I didn't notice was when they did have the wet tires on their cars and they not getting a lot of rain, they were avoiding the puddles. They weren't trying to keep the tires as cool as they needed to be. So that's a little bit of a game changer for a lot of these drivers. I may never know. They might not want to have them too cool to where once it does get to the point where they got them warmed up the way that they need to be, they're able to get through the track a little bit more sufficiently, as to where if they're cooler, they got to be off throttle a little bit more longer to make sure that when they do get on throttle, the back end of the car does not step out on them.
What I'm seeing right now is the Mulsanne, the dries are the better choice because you're getting more speed down the straight. But as I said, the Bugatti section of the circuit, Jake, is favouring those wet tyres. It's a tough call to make for those drivers out there, as Dylan said. He would choose the dries. I don't know what I'd choose at this point. I don't know what I would want to favour. I suppose it would have to come down to the feeling in the car, how you feel the circuit. If you feel like you're getting loose through the wetter sections of the circuit, or if you feel that you're able to make up for that on the straight. We've spent it time and time again. It's a tough balancing act. Where do you situate yourself, though? Do you just go off a feel and think, can I do another lap? I don't really know how bad it's going to be on the next lap. I'm going to be committing to another 4 minutes of this. If it's too wet, I'm screwed. If it's not wet enough, I'm screwed. What do I do? And it is such a tough choice on board that car. You're trying to think of so much all at once. Where does the head go, though? Where do you go? Because we've got less than 30 minutes to go, 22 minutes on the clock. We mentioned that this is where the rain was going to get heavier, and we're nearly at the end of that 10 minutes that you mentioned, where we could probably run as far as we could on dry tyres. It's soon going to become apparent that the wets are going to be better, but how much longer are the dries going to be an applicable tyre choice in this race?
Oh, I don't know. And it depends on the line that they take through the corners. Stephen Tonkin is the one who's trying to do the hunting and the chasing at the moment. That's a car going wide then into Indianapolis. So Scott Rankin gets another. Matt Schmidtke, he goes and moves by. But Tonkin right now in the brewed coffee car out there for his run here. He's really trying to prove that those dry tyres, they can hold. And this is the toughest section, the Porsche curves, because he immediately gives up half a second through the first corner. And now as he looks to tiptoe about using any grip, another tenth goes away here. He'll look around. Dale Atkins, who is on a set of wet tyres, is going to want to be a lap down, making his move around and trying to get the clearance then sorted. So I think there's going to be a lot there. Martin Hallinan is at the side of the road off of Mulsanne corner. That might be a safety car late on in this race, and that will neutralise the field.
Well, this is a massive moment for a safety car if it does come. Daniel McCrowan he's right at the start-finish line. So if the safety car's got to get called, they've got to call it now. Otherwise, the whole field is going to do a whole lap before the safety car can actually get out there. Hallinan parked up. Rankin's into pit lane for wet tyres. I suppose it's a fair gamble to take. Permission to tow. And that's what I kind of was leading to, Jacob, what I suspected to, because ultimately McCrowan's already passed pit exit. They'd have to wait 4 minutes for the whole field to get picked up by the safety car. So by that point, you might as well just let him tow, because by that point he's going to be 8 minutes back on the whole field, and it wouldn't be very fair to him to have to wait a whole lap before the whole field could come past him under yellow flag. But McCrowan still pushes on. Ben Brook has now had a moment as well. I'm just trying to find him on the list. Here he is here. He's got himself going again now. He's been having a hell of a run in Split 2 of V8 Veterans recently. In fact, he's one of the championship challengers over in that championship with 2 rounds to go. They head out to the Nürburgring next week for the full Nordschleife, a 24-hour layout, similar to what's being run this evening for the Nürburgring 24-hour. But for Brook, he wants to try and maximise points in every single series that he's racing in. This is how it happened to Mr. Martin Hallinan, and how he ended up off the road down at Mulsanne corner. So he tried to go up the inside of one of those Sud Speed cars, doored him, and the car is parked up on the side of the road. Now, that is the rain light on the back of it. It's not the blown engine light. The blown engine light would be a flashing yellow light there for Martin Hallinan. It's a very weird and awkward moment for him, and I'm unsure why he's parked up. Well, it may have been, actually, now that I think about it, it may have been a black screen moment for him. He couldn't see where he was, and ultimately he had nowhere to go, and just pulled it across the side of the road, hoped he was in a safe spot, and then waited to tow back to pit lane there.
Could have broken the suspension on the contact as well. There's a lot of things that it could have been there. I think we've just hit the crossover period now. So Kane Ryder could be walking his way up to second, as there's Kurt Chapman, currently in 11th right now. And he knows that he's not far away from Owen Coleman, who's in that 10th position. So there are pit stops aplenty that have gone through. But I look at Jake DeBetter and Stephen Tompkin. They've tried to hold themselves out and say, what can we do? Can we hold on? We've just hit the batch of Category 2 green band rain, and I think they are going to have to come in. Otherwise, they are going to be limping around this circuit here for 18 minutes with tyres that will get colder and colder, grip that will be less and less, opportunity that will fall away. I think they could be risking even a top 10 here if they stay out.
Well, the one thing that I've noticed that was a massive risk, and I want to pull this out, Stephen Tonkin has taken 3 stops. He pitted with Daniel McCrowan, but he didn't take wet tyres. He took dry tyres. Ultimately, Tonkin is going to have to come back into pit lane and take a 4th stop in this race. There's not many that are left who have done 2 stops. The only car inside of the top 10 right now who's only done 2 is Jake DeBetter, the leader of the Challenger class.
Ooh.
Now, he's on dry tyres and he's struggling down at Indianapolis, so he won't be too far away from that 3rd stop. I don't think he can nurse this along for the next, 17 minutes of this race and get this thing home. He's going to lose a podium to Kane Ryder ultimately, and Ryder, when Tonkin eventually comes in, will take P2 in the race. Although he's not quite able to get the power off the corner on board those wet tyres. So DeBetter's got the power on the slicks, but in the corners he's struggling in this McLaren, and as the only 2-stop runner in this race thus far, he's really struggling out there.
Look at him try and take this big high line. He's trying to just use the karting line, stay off of the rubbered-in racing surface as much as he can. Kane Ryder has jumped up on the back, but he needs to find space to go and get this move. He might have to go inside or outside, but it's middle of the road right now from Jake DeBetter. This is exactly what he has to do. Kane's got to be patient here as he works through here the Corvette curves, trying to go around the outside. He gets his corner. He tags his corner as he works through. Kane Ryder's got to be very, very careful about his car placement as he works up over to the Ford chicane here. And if DeBetter's wise about it, he pits. He doesn't, he stays out. And there's contact, he spins, he caught the puddle. He spins an aquaplanes.
That is a massive moment down into the Ford chicanes. Catches the puddle right on the pit entry. Decided not to come in for wet tyres. This is arguably going to cost him the lead and the win for the Challenger class, although Ben Wilkes has also just gone off in that class as well further back. He's dropping position. Right now, though, I've got to look to Gavin Simpson. Led this race earlier on, led it as a full-fledged overall race leader, and he is only a few moments away from arguably leading the Challenger class because the dry tyre runners are going to come in. They've got to come in on this lap. I think they've gone too long at this point because Ryder's managed to get past Tonkin now for P2. The cars that are out there on dries are struggling as Wilkes and Brook come into pit lane, double Benjamin pit stop for them, and this is a money stop for them to get home here, Dylan.
Yeah, definitely going to be something to watch coming to the closing minutes of this race. And I was super surprised that he didn't have to go down into pit lane to put those wet tires on. You seen him get on the brakes, hit a puddle, and, everybody knows with dry tires, hitting a puddle, getting on the brakes, hydroplane, you're going to be ended up getting loose, spinning yourself out. Luckily, he didn't get into the rear end of the driver in front of him. He was able to get the cars completely stopped, get it sent back around, and get back going. But with that being said, are we going to be able to see that guy go back in this time by, put those wet tires on? You see how much rain is hitting the front windscreens. You see all the rain water coming up off the track, and it's definitely going to be making it harder for a lot of these drivers to see what's going on all the way in and around them. But it's also going to make it a little bit harder for the drivers that are on the dry tires. They got to be able to make sure that they can go in, take that extra stop. It's not going to hurt anything. You want to take the extra stop if you have to. Put yourself in a predicament where you can finish the race when you're this close to the end of it with only 14 minutes left to go in this 2-hour race.
Tonkin's coming around off of the Michelin chicane. and he's now going to have to try and get back up to speed. There goes Nathan Hodges through, and I think they absolutely have to come in. They've got no grip. With grip and running around here, Hamish, they're 8 seconds a lap slower than Daniel McCrone. At that pace, they fall outside the top 10. They have a way to get back by Adams, Chapman, Reardon, because if they come in, take their stop, and drive for it, get to the end of the race.
That's what they've got to do at this point, and ultimately, it's once again, you've got to choose. You've just got to bite the bullet.
Oh, DeBetta's off.
Oh, Jake DeBetta has run wide down at the Mulsanne corner, and that's the story. That is the telltale sign. You've got to come in. You've given up so much time thus far. The spray is at a ridiculous level. You've just got to admit it and come into pit road and say, hey, I should have come in a lap earlier. Because they're risking throwing this whole race away. The other issue is they can't go offline. As soon as they go off the racing line, they're cooked, because none of that water is getting dispersed off of the regular racing line. And you can see as Tonkin tries to just nurse it through up towards Indianapolis, he is struggling to keep this thing on the road. And look at the gain that Gavin Simpson just got on him over 2 corners. He wasn't even in the shot 2 corners ago. And there goes Stephen Tonkin off the road. Caught the AstroTurf and the curb, rear ends off the car, and now it is Spain without the S for Stephen Tonkin.
I think he understands that he's pushed a little bit too hard here, that he's gone that little bit deeper and he can't afford it, and he knows that this is going to be his race, and he's trying desperately. Look at him. Just trying to fight even through a small flick left. He's going to get to the Porsche curves here, and it's going to be ice. If you remember all the crash compilations that come along, it's a painted surface as you walk into here, and you try and just make sure you can drive it through the corner. You don't have any worry or concern. He's got Jake DeBetta directly behind, and through the Porsche curves, look at him, he's just tagged the wall. The Porsche curves, the car can't even turn in a straight line, and everyone just has to jump on the binders. Thus Reardon, who was at the start of that lap half a minute behind him and has gone through.
It's a ridiculous loss, absolutely ridiculous. And look at the pooling water off the exit of the Chevrolet and the Corvette curves as well. I mean, just an unbelievable amount of water. They've gone too long. If they don't come in now, they're crazy. And you'd be questioning McLaren's strategic choices if they didn't come into pit road, as they both do as expected. So they've got to be careful on pit road here though. This hasn't been dispersed nearly as much as the racing surface, so they've got to just tiptoe it through, put the wets on, take the loss, but ultimately they've thrown away a top 10 by staying out, arguably, Jake, even as much as 3 laps too long on these tyres.
I argue they went 2 laps too long. I think they did the right thing out there until the point where it switched, and they just went 2 laps too long on it, trying to play the gamble. It hasn't paid off, and it's going to cost them a lot of points. Gavin Simpson will now have a big gap at the front of the field. Brant Tucker moving into the top 10 now as 2 challengers find themselves there. And what it has meant is that drivers like Matthew Crozier, who started 20th on the grid, is very much determined as being in 3rd place, and deservedly so.
He does deserve it, as Kane Ryder has gone off at the first Mulsanne chicane. Big mistake, first mistake we've seen from him all night, as Tonkin has gotten himself a 5-second penalty for an unsafe rejoin. Is the dream alive for Crozier to get a top 2 finish tonight after a mistake for Ryder down at the Mulsanne chicane? It's a horrendous one for him. He's given up a bunch of time, but it'll be a wake-up call. Wake up, reset, push on. Don't make the same mistake, because you've only got 10 minutes to go before you take P2 here at Le Mans.
I think that's just a sense of the conditions are getting tougher here, and you are just having to fight. They did look for a time like there was some respite on the horizon. There isn't now. It is just going to get wetter and wetter. They're in this now until the end of this race. And Kenyon Ryder knows nothing silly. He's only limiting the damage to Daniel McCrohan, which means the championship will go down to the final round of the season. But critically, it's how much he might lose if he throws it off the road. And right now he's driven a lovely, I would say, calculated race as Kane Ryder. He's not been the fastest at any point in time, but he knows he's just got to find himself around this circuit, and he will realise that he'll only have 2 laps to go after this.
Well, it's unbelievably close to the end. It's 8.5 minutes on the clock. In fact, it may be 3 laps to go here, Jake, when they cross the line. I think it's this next one plus 2 more, because I don't know if they make it to the end of the race.
No, they're doing 4:24.
So that's right. Yeah, no.
Two.
Yeah, no, it will be 2. That's right. For whatever reason, I'm thinking in the world of 3-minute laps, and we're not doing 3-minute laps, nowhere near them here tonight. But Daniel McCrowan sits in a great position right now to gain some points on his teammate in that elite class championship. Gavin Simpson's going to come out of nowhere to gain some points for the challenger class as well. He's gaining at least, I believe, 14 positions over Peter Baxter, who's back in P19 right now. So that's where Baxter's ended up after his warfare here this evening. It's wet, it's wild, it's tough. I'm surprised we actually haven't seen a safety car in this wet period. We haven't seen one in nearly 50 minutes. We were close to one with Martin Hallinan in the wall, but ultimately we haven't seen a sign of a Sud Speed Glove safety car just yet. What we want to do is, we do want to give a shout out, of course, to the series sponsors. Of course, Dash Offroad, 4x4 parts and accessory store. You can check them out on their website, and a massive shout out to them as the title sponsors of the series. Sud Speed Gloves as well, the safety car sponsor of the series as well. And a big thank you to Kippy Graphics, and as well to Sim Racing in Focus podcast, available where you can find your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, even on YouTube with the video variant as well. So you can find all of those mentioned in our description too. Of our thanks to those supporting us as well. And if you're new here, you've been here for a while and you're wondering the change over here, well, Infinity Broadcasting is now the broadcasting partner of Premier Endurance League for the GT3 Limited Series. So you can help support us by going over to our channel on YouTube and clicking the like button and subscribe to the bell icon as well, so you're notified whenever we go racing next season with Premier Endurance League action. It'll be happening across both channels for next season. And also be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the bell icon as well to the Premier Endurance League YouTube channel to help support us for both the Limited and the Open Series as well. Coming up will be here at Le Mans in the next few weeks. So you can look forward to that action with the SimSpeed TV guys back in the booth for the Open Series. It's been a wild race thus far, Dylan. We've only got 6 minutes on the clock, 2 laps to go. It's Daniel McCrowan's to lose, and it's Gavin Simpson's to lose for the Challenger class. It's make or break time now to the end of this race. They've just got to stay focused and keep their head in the game, keep their car on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that the race started to where it's at now, yes, we've seen an opening lap crash. We've seen a couple of crashes throughout the entirety of this race, but we've also seen what the rain can do to the car and the track, as one of Porsche going off-road there just a little bit to let the other one go by, as in Aston Martin off the pace in the grass, sitting there collecting dandelions as he has broke the rear steer out of that car. So that could potentially bring out a safety car if he can't get it back across the racetrack, get it into pit lane, and get off the track in a safety manner. But still, you know, just the type of racing that we see here tonight with the rain, the dry, the wrecks, everything that we've seen here tonight. It's been a pleasure watching it unfold from the start of the green flag all the way up to right now, as we have 5 minutes left to go in this race. It's a little bit different for me seeing cars on a road course with rain, but still an absolute blast to call the action with you and Jake up here in the broadcast booth.
You mentioned it, 1 lap more when McCrowan crosses the line once again, and it's been a pleasure to have yourself and Dylan in the booth with me tonight as well. Less than 5 minutes on the clock. Rain is well and truly here. Also got no dry tyre runners out there, and now it's the game of survival for McCrowan. 16.5 seconds is the gap back to his teammate and Kane Ryder, and 1 more lap. He just needs to keep it on the road. How much of a heartbreak could this be if he does make the mistake and possibly ends up in the weeds and possibly gives up the race lead to his own teammate, the championship leader, Kane Ryder?
He won't. Gap's too big.
I don't think
even
he will
if he
either.
goes off the road.
But, unless he breaks the car, is the only thing I could see that happening with. If he busted the steering or something, that's the only one I see that happening.
And the way that we're seeing these incidents coming up now here, that we saw with Nathaniel Coburn, for example, he was off the side of the road. Any other time, it would have been a safety car, but because we're so late in the race and there wouldn't be enough time to get the safety car out and around, he's got the freedom to tow, and I think that's what we're seeing here. Daniel McCrowan has got himself this margin. He understands how important of a lead that he's got, that he's built this through great driving, just holding himself steady, not overextending here at Le Mans as many people think you have to, because this is a circuit where we talk about it being the great sprint out there, instead of it being an endurance style circuit. It's a sprint style now that you have to work around here. But ultimately, he's driven it in an endurance style, just slowly picking off the drives that he's wanted to, and it's given him the lead. He's just been tactically the most flexible, and that's why he's out there leading, and why he'll only have a lap to go here at Le Mans, and it will be a tricky lap, don't get me wrong, but a lap where I think he can just maybe switch off a little bit and go, okay, I can just relax a little bit more for this final lap, knowing I've got gap if it goes wrong.
Well, it's 1 lap to go. White flag for the race leader, Daniel McCrowan, as he crosses the start-finish line. Matt Carrick has gone off the road down at Indianapolis, and he's just dropped below Greg Barber and Ben Johnson as well. So this battle continues to build for them. Richard Mayer, that was where Kim Baxter too in the midfield as well. So there's plenty of action still coming for those drivers down the order. But for Daniel McCrowan, it is 13 more kilometres to contest with. 13 more kilometres of wet racing here at Le Mans before the checkered flag flies, and he calls himself a race winner once more. Now, this will gain him some points over his teammate Kane Ryder. Now, I don't believe he will be winning the championship or leading the championship in the Spa over his teammate. No, I don't believe it'll be that close. But ultimately what it's going to be is Kurt Chapman is back in pit lane.
Yeah, he'll be a lap short.
Wow. I don't quite understand how he can be a lap short. He went longer than most people on the last stint. This is crazy to me.
He has the fuel there.
Yeah. That's the problem. You can sometimes mismatch it or even be a couple of minutes too short on the fuel, and this is going to drop Kurt outside of the top 10. That promotes Scott Rankin back up into the top 10, by the way. So I'm sure he'll be smiling at that factor. No, he's still mean-mogging the camera, it seems. Talking strategy with his teammate Ben Johnson as well on the headset. But for Logitech G driver, he hopes to continue to push here. 10-second penalty for Patrick Reardon for causing an incident on lap 27, so that's not a penalty that he wanted to see coming his way. One thing I will say is if you're watching the race afterwards and you want to get your camera on the stream, watch out for the message I send out pre-race for Spa-Francorchamps. Right, at everyone, the link to Video Ninja. Get your webcam set up, we'll get you on the broadcast as Rankin has just spun it round. He has just spun it round on the final lap, and that will cost him quite possibly a top 10. He's managed to remain ahead of Andrew Neil, but you can see him wrestling with it. How much is that going to affect the mindset right now?
A lot. He'll have doubts now for the final half a lap. He's actually got Connor Nixon today in his ear as the spotter, so he'll have that to go and work with. But in the final stages of this race, he looks at Andrew Neil and he's allowed him to get close. He's got the pace to pull away from him, but he knows any mistake from this point is going to be a nightmare, and he doesn't want to sit down and be in that position where it is just trouble here, there and everywhere. Look at the way he's just got to fight that Corvette through, that wants to just turn around Hamish at every single point in time. He's over a minute down at the moment on your overall race leader, and the key to his race is, without the 3 issues that he's had here today, he'll be turning around looking at this, and he could have very easily have been sat with a top 5 finish. But that's the way that racing goes. Currently flashing the lights is Daniel McCrowan here as he heads his way to Indianapolis corner, trying to get PJ Whiteman to move out of the way late.
Yep, he's only got a few kilometres left here of this Le Mans circuit as he gets past Whiteman with the heavy damage on the front end of that car. He'll come through Arnage and
keep on Gavin Simpson.
Oh, yeah, Gavin is putting pressure on Nathan Hodges. He's making a move for P4 on the road. He wants the move and he wants the position. Can he get the job done? He can. P4 on the road now for Gavin Simpson. I don't know if Hodges can come back at him before the end of the lap. We'll see how he gets through the Porsche curves, I'm sure. McCrowan enters the Porsche curves for one final time. Slow, steady wins the race. Endurance mentality in differing conditions, changeable conditions here tonight at Le Mans. And he's going to come home with 4 points on the board. puts a little bit of a challenge to his own teammate in Kane Ryder, who'll lead the championship if he remains in P2 towards Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in a month's time. That will be June 28th, the next time we're racing for the GT3 Limited Series. You don't want to miss it. 7:50 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Through the 4 chicanes for the final time. And Daniel McCrowan is going to get an all-time race win in a Crown Jewel of sports car racing for Chevrolet and Team Max Boost as he wins it out at Le Mans. Kane Ryder, 6 seconds back. In fact, longer than that, 8 seconds back to Matt Crozier in P3, but he's 16 seconds behind his own teammate. He'll come up towards the line. It's a 1-2 finish for the top two in the championship and for Team Max Boost. That's a great result for Ryder on board the Lamborghini. Crozier will come home in P3 on the podium, up 17. And Gavin Simpson, what a drive, up 13 into the race win for the Challenger class here this evening. Fantastic result. Hodges inside of the top 5. Adams will look to come home inside of the top 6 as well, up 32 positions. What a race for Jason Adams there, Jake. Up 32, unbelievable.
Yeah, that's just what happens around a circuit where you got variability. You have to just deal with the cards that you're given. And Jason Adams, who wasn't allowed to set a qualifying time, ultimately jumps up. Also, you could say Brant Tucker had himself a decent drive at the office. Roy Koistra, another one who couldn't qualify, goes 8th. It'll be Owen Coleman 9th. And Scott How does Scott Rankin get a top 10 after that one?
I don't know. I have got no idea. It must be in the stars or something for Scotty, but that is a hell of a race to come back from. And to get that top 10 is a fantastic result for Scott Rankin. Ben Wilkes is still battling away here with Thorne Leggett towards the line. It'll be a little while before we get every single car with the checkered flag, of course. We're waiting for everybody from P8 or P19 down. That is Ben Wilkes, who are waiting to get the checkered flag, all the way down to Glenn Crellin, who has not crossed the finish line just yet. What a race it was here at Le Mans. It excites me and fills me with that excitement for Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in a month's time. June 28th, one to mark on the calendar, Jake, and Spa's one that often throws a lot of challenges to drivers. I would argue it's a more challenging circuit than what Le Mans is as a whole, but I think tonight with the wet weather, that offered up a lot more of a challenge to those drivers than what we'll see out at Spa in only a month's time.
I think Spa is the great all-round circuit. I think it proves to be one of the circuits where you can fight hard in any car that goes out there, whereas I think circuits like Le Mans, for example, I think you have to pick and choose what's great to be raced around here and what isn't. So I look around at it and I think, you know, Spa's going to be a worthy title finale out there. It's another one of the great classic circuits to go and run with. But Le Mans proves itself every time on why it is such a difficult circuit to go out there and run. And this could have been a race that could have gone any one of 5 different ways ultimately from it. But the rain came at the right time for Daniel McCrowan, and he played the strategy card well. And that's why he's up there at the top, and why he's at the top actually so convincingly by the time that checkered flag had flown.
So we're just waiting for the final 2 cars to cross the line in this race to be classified as race finishes in the end. In fact, Glenn Crellin's actually just had a moment towards the start-finish line before his race has finished. For our podium finishes, though, McCrowan, Ryder, and Crozier. That's a great finish for those guys. For the elite class and the overalls as well. Unfortunately, we only have enough time to chat to our class winners tonight in Daniel McCrowan and Gavin Simpson. But what a race, though. Props to Kane and props to Crozier for such a great race. They drove absolutely spectacular out there. I think they should be very, very proud of the efforts that they've put in across this race here this evening. I think we have one more car to cross the line. Possibly. No, everyone's crossed the line, but it's not giving me the results yet. That's okay.
Martin Lofthouse.
Ah, yes, Martin Lofthouse. We're still waiting for him. He's actually about to finish his race as we speak. So one car to finish. That'll give us then the results when he does cross the line. And then we'll be able to read through them and then have a quick chat to our race winner overall in Daniel McCrowan and our Challenger class winner in Gavin Simpson, as well as Lofthouse finishes up his race. And the race results for you for the overall, it will be Daniel McCrowan over Kane Ryder and Matthew Crozier on the podium. Nathan Hodges, Jason Adams, ahead of Rue Koistra, Owen Campbell, Scott Rankin, Andrew Neil, and Patrick Reardon then for the top 10, Jake. And that second 10 down to 20th place, it's kind of a story of what could have been for some of those drivers.
Yeah, you look around at them. 11th for Andrew Neil. Patrick Reardon, I thought, drove really well to 12th position, a gain of 9. Neil up 30, by the way. Greg Barber speeding on pit lane, pretty much put an end to his run with Matthew Carrigan and Matt Schmidtke then in 14th and 15th. Benjamin Johnson and Richard Mayer then 16th and 17th ahead of Thorne Weggett, who we saw have that spin. Ben Wilkes, who we saw have a spin. But critically, Peter Baxter, 20th place out there overall. He's given away a lot of points after his spin in the opening lap of the race and his fight back to say this could be a chance for other drivers in the championship to attack him and give him something to think about at Spa.
It's interesting. This is actually classified Baxter below the top 20. I'm unsure why, but ultimately that's just how it's classified. Unless there is a time, I might have actually classified a time penalty possibly to him. But Piper, Webber, Reynolds, Lofthouse, McLaren ahead of Hallinan, Trott, Adcock and Provenzali. It's not including every single driver. Okay, so that's my mistake there. Let's see if we can fix this up and get everybody on the finishing order. There it is. That's corrected. I selected the wrong one. So, yeah, Neil to Reardon, Barber, Carrick, Schmidtke, Johnson, Mayer, Weggett, Wilkes, Baxter, as we said. And then into the rest of the top 30, it was Chapman to Foster, Custodio ahead of Latea, Brook, Tonkin, Purcell, DeBetta, Piper and Heaney for our top 30. Then after that as well, moving back to Wells, Webber, Reynolds, Lofthouse, Whiteman, McLaren, Coburn, Atkins, Krellin and Ruddle for the top 40. And rounding out the order was Mellis, Hallinan, Trott, Fritz, who was disqualified. So unfortunately for Daniel Fritz, he won't actually score any points tonight. Adcock, head of Provenzali, and the no race controller Scott Barton and Tim Lawson as well. Quickly to the Challenger class, it was Gavin Simpson ahead of Brant Tucker, Ben Wilkes on the podium, Pete Baxter, Mark Foster, Ben Brook ahead of Brendan Purcell, Jake DeBetta, Greg Heaney, Christian Welsen for the top 10, PJ Whiteman ahead of Nathaniel Coburn, who was in the wars tonight, as was Dale Atkins, as was Glenn Krellin, ahead of Chris Ruddle, Stefan Mellis, and Daniel Fritz at the bottom of that scoring there. And to the elite class, McCrowan, Ryder, Crozier, the podium, Hodges, Adams, Koistra, Coleman, Rankin, Neil, Reardon, the top 10. Greg Barber gets back to P11 in his class at the end of that race there after what was a very unlucky safety car call at the wrong time for him. Head of Carrick, Schmidtke, Johnson, Mayer, Weggett, Chapman, Custodio, Latea, Tonkin. Then the top 20 ahead of Piper, Webber, Reynolds, Lofthouse, McLaren, Hallinan, Trott, Adcock and Provenzali. The back end of the elite class field. We're going to have a quick chat to some of our drivers here tonight. I'm waiting to see if Gavin Simpson has joined the waiting room. He hasn't, unfortunately, as our race winner for the Challenger class. What we'll do is we'll get a little bit of B-roll happening to push on for the rest of the interviews. And what we might do is we might actually just have a quick chat to Daniel McCrowan first up as our race winner and give Gavin a little bit of time to come in for a post-race chat. Daniel, welcome in. Race winner in the end. Overall race winner. Congratulations. Not going to lead the championship into Spa next week, but yourself and Kane hold this championship in a tight grip hold at this stage. How was that one for you? Changeable conditions. That was surely tough out there, especially on board this Corvette.
Yeah, thank you very much. Probably got a bit lucky there with the timing of the safety car, but yeah, bad luck to Greg. I mean, he was flying. It should have been his race tonight, but that's how it works. But yeah, the Chev wasn't ideal, but I made it work in the end.
We made it work. You made it work to an absolute maximum. Race win ahead of Kane. Now, what's the game plan going to be next week for the team? Because one of you can only win the championship. Is there going to be favouritism towards Kane, or are you both going to duke it out for the title, not next week, next month, when we head out to Spa for the final round of the season?
I'm probably going to pay someone off from another team to get them to take Kane out, I reckon.
We love to hear that. We love to hear it. Jake,
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to ask Daniel before we let him go?
Well, Daniel, I just want to get the understanding of how you look to approach that race, because it looked for all metrics that it wasn't one where you were going out there and you were throwing big moves here, left and right. It looked like the race came to you rather than you went out to go and take the race. Was that the understanding of how you looked to go about it, or was it a case of you thought that you were being maybe more aggressive than you have been at previous rounds, especially considering now that it's back-to-back victories for you?
Yeah, well, I knew I didn't have the pace overall in the Chev, so I kind of had some fuel targets that I wanted to stick to. And when I managed to nail them, and we had a few guys spotting for us, and they said, you know, the rain's coming. We got really lucky with the safety car, because the lap that we come in to put the wets on was probably one lap too early to put them on, but some guys had already just pitted for slick, so probably a bit lucky in the end, but yeah, you still got to manage to do it. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
Well, Daniel, we appreciate your time. We don't have time to talk to your teammate Kane tonight, so that's going to give you the floor to give the shout-outs for Team Max Boost. But is there anyone that you want to give a shout-out to, or a special thank you out there as well as our race winner here this evening overall, and for the elite class as well?
Yeah, big thanks to the team, especially Kane, Vaughan, and young Seb. We did plenty of practice for this, and E-Paint's our major sponsor. Hit them up if you want a nice livery done. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Really appreciate your time. And best of luck at Spa in a month's time. We also wish you the best of luck in your preparations going forward for that one as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next up, he hasn't joined the green room, but I have found Gavin in his team chat, and I think we're just going to have to steal him here, Jake, to come have a quick chat. Because what a drive to get to the race-winning position. Gavin, we've stolen you out of your team channel, and you are a race winner, sir, for your class. And we only have time to chat to our race winners for the rest of this season, so you get the honours. And congratulations. I mean, P4 overall, Challenger class win, that's got to feel pretty good.
I'm hoping you can hear me, because I don't think my mic's working.
We can hear you.
Oh, beautiful. I've been having troubles with it all night.
Well, we're glad it's working now. Tough one out there, obviously, dealing with the choices of tyres and strategizing correctly, but you managed to stay out of the trouble, and you managed to pick it all correct. It's come home with a top 5 finish and a P1 for the Challenger class as well. I mean, how's that feel to get that done at one of the crown jewels of sports car racing?
Yeah, fantastic. I love this track. I mean, I didn't have a very lucky lap 1, so I don't know how this has come apart, but yeah, I'm over the moon with the result.
Well, it's all worked out for you. You picked those wet tyres. You know, we were kind of discussing, you know, was it the right time for wets, or were dries still good? And ultimately, I think there was probably a 5-lap window where you could take wets too early, or you could take them too late. And I think you were maybe 1 lap in from the too early marker, but it still paid out for you very, very well. You had wicked pace out there. You know, you obviously said it's one of your favourite tracks. Is Spa could Spa be a similar scenario for you, or are you going to have to take a little bit more preparation going into that one outside of Le Mans, and trying to figure out how we best going to approach that track, and how we best going to approach maybe trying to get another Challenger class race win for yourself before the season's done?
Yeah, well, I felt very comfortable out there. I think I grabbed the fastest lap at one stage until it got taken off me by, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 tenths. So I was quite happy with my pace out there. For Spa, yeah, I don't even know what I'm going to do there, because I don't like that track. So it's going to be a completely different contrast for me. With the rain, yeah, I actually thought I'd come in a bit too late, to be honest. But yeah, I thought I could catch them, but a couple of mistakes when it got really moderately wet sort of cost me any chance to getting on that podium overall.
Well, Jake, is there anything that you want to ask Gavin before we let him go?
Yeah, I'll get in and ask you, Gavin, because as far as a championship looks, this was a race that started off a little bit stop-starty. So for you to be up there as high as P4, gaining 13, seeing drivers out there in the championship back in 20th, how important is that points gain for you, and building together a very strong end of the season?
Oh, absolutely. Good, very good points haul here. Does help the championship. I don't know if I'm in contention for it, to be honest. I didn't have a very good Adelaide, and I think I missed last round. So Yeah, I don't know if I'm in championship contention, but yeah, to take some points, and I'm sure I'll be moving up the ladder somewhere along the lines. But yeah, it's really good to pick up that many points.
Well, you were 200 points adrift of Peter Baxter coming into this race. You've obviously gained quite a fair few on him now. But aside from that, maybe some points penalties towards the other drivers ahead of you could help you, or even some time penalties next week as well. Anything can happen. I'm not sure about the mathematics on it. I'll have to figure out how much is worth each position and how all the little pieces of scoring goes for PEL, so we can make a proper determination next time out in a month's time. But Gavin, we appreciate your time. Sorry, not sorry that we stole you from the team channel to come and have a quick chat, but I thought I'll find the race winner if he was in there. You were there, so we got to have this quick chat. We wish you the best of luck out at Spa next time out. Is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Just my team, Frog Leap Juice Racing. Those guys set me up to every week basically, and our sponsors, Juiced Energy, Racecrafts, Speed and Stott Hair.
Well, we thank you so much, Gavin. We wish you luck in your preparation for Spa and at the race as well, and we wish you luck in maybe trying to get yourself another class podium into the final round of the season.
It would be very nice to finish the season like that, yes.
We wish you luck in that. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it has been a long one tonight, a long race, of course. 2 hours of racing here out at Le Mans for the fourth round of the season. As we said, next time out we go to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Dylan, your final thoughts before we ride off tonight, before we head out of Le Mans for the final time?
Yeah, it was definitely a great race to watch. Obviously starting over with the clear forecast, making it into the late race in the rain category, but you've seen a lot of passing. You've seen a lot of give and take with a lot of drivers out there doing what they needed to do. You've seen tire strategies coming into play. You've seen safety cars coming into play. And then you also got to see a little bit of what the difference was with the slick tire over the wet tire, and like what you said about the taking them a little bit too early, a little bit too late. You got to see exactly what all these drivers kind of formulate into a plan to get to the end of this race, and it was an actually beautiful way to end the race, seeing everybody's different strategies come into play. A lot of drivers didn't get the finish that they wanted to get, but they still have one more race at Spa in 1 month's time to kind of rebuttal from what they had from here at Le Mans tonight.
They do indeed. They've got a chance to make up for it out at Spa. Jake, your final thoughts before we sign off for the evening?
I think we're set up really for a very nice race that will come along in a month's time. I think we understood that this was going to be one where I think you had to hold out for the result that you wanted rather than the result that you wanted to go and get. And ultimately, I think those who realise that this circuit will come to you rather than you've got to go and attack this track got the best results out tonight. Very tough racing out there, very difficult to get it all to sort itself out. But Hamish, I think that as far as this GT3 Limited Championship's going to go, I think there are still some twists and turns in the tail as we head ourselves over to Spa.
There are indeed, and I couldn't agree more. I think Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps is going to offer up so much for us the next time out on the road here in the Premier Endurance League for the Dash Offroad GT3 Limited Series. That'll be the next time we're on your screens here for the Limited Series, and where we'll be out in Belgium for the end of the season. Coming up on the channel is still to come the Premier Endurance League Motor Sim World GT3 Open Series, broadcasted by SimSpeed TV out at Le Mans, before we will then be ending out our season out at Spa in that month's time on June 28th. Be sure to give support to our sponsors, of course, Dash Offroad 4x4 Parts Accessory Store, SootSpeed Gloves as well for supporting us with the safety car sponsorship, as well to Kiwi Graphics and Sim Racing in Focus as well. You can help support Premier Endurance League by clicking the like button and subscribe. The bell icon too, so you're notified whenever we go racing right here on the channel. And you can come and help support us over at Infinity Broadcasting, heading over to our channel, clicking like, subscribe, and the bell icon too over there. You'll catch the action of US-based Gen 6 Series Highside Motorsports for their second season. We're racing tomorrow morning out at Pocono for the Pennsylvania 150. You can also catch the end of season 27 for the Racecraft Simulations V8 Veterans for the Split 2 action as we head out to the Nürburgring Nordschleife out on Saturday night, 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow's broadcast on Infinity Broadcasting takes place at 9:50 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. But I'm in Hamish Munro alongside Jake Sperry and Dylan McDonald alongside. Appreciations to them and appreciations for you for taking time out of your lives to join us here for the Dash Off-Road Premier Endurance League GT3 Limited Series. See you guys next time out at Spa. But until then, stay safe, drive hard, and as always, bye for now.